Welcome back, everyone, to the best talking show. I guess we call it a late night show. Is it a late night show? The best late night show on YouTube, BookTube, and all of entertainment. And that is Chatting with Nuts. And I am your host. I am the flavor you wish to savior. I am the Friday night delight. I am the BookTube beefcake. The one and only Jimmy Nuts, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome me to my own show, please. And this is episode 31. That means we've done this 30 times, and each time it gets better and better and better. And to keep the throne, to keep the crown of this title, I had to bring in the two most reliable people I know, my favorite content creators on the platform, and that are my two knights, really. We have Sir Matt, the Bud Knight, Sir Ezra, the Watchful. We have Bend the Knee. We have Heroes of the Horn. They have done so many different things over so many different platforms, but I wanted to bring them back. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Dude, you're great, man.
Dude, thanks for the intro. That was sick right there. I feel
well. The banners.
You did.
Hey, I'm just glad. I was in episode 1 of Chatting with Nuts.
This is true.
And so
it's gonna be
about every 30 episodes, I get to come back. So I'm down. So I got to be 61. I'll be back.
Yeah, just to be clear, I was on the first ever live stream.
That is also true.
But was it Chatting with Nuts?
I just want to say it was the precursor to, which is like exclusive.
It was like the Dunkin' Egg too.
It was like
we're not gonna fight about it. We're gonna fight about who was on here.
Some people were saying best day to do this, given the new A Song of Ice and Fire news. I would say absolutely.
I know. We weren't even planning it.
Yeah, it just kind of worked out.
Or did we have insider information?
Yeah, I mean, we are connected, and you are a shareholder over at Warner Bros.
That is
right?
true, man. I bought more today.
It was on sale.
Actually, it wasn't. Well, it's on sale because the market was down, but today it was up like 6%. I wonder why. Was it because there was news that got the entire hyped? I think so.
I think there's some brand confidence happening over at HBO right now. Huh? What do you say?
Yeah, as there should be.
I did think about the fact that as you were the first live stream, and then you were kind of the first stream to say, hey, I could do this. And I said, well, I got to bring on Matt then for episode 1, but I've never had you both together on the channel.
I know
something that it's been on the bucket list, but I like to keep one in the chamber. I like to keep 2 in the chamber.
Yeah.
I said, let's go. Let's get the boys together.
Dude, this is sick because I'm like, I don't know. It feels like we've actually had Jimmy over on our channel and stuff, and we have such good conversations over there when it comes to Song of Ice and Fire and just theories and stuff. And you're reading through some of this. I mean, dude, every time you come on, it's such a sick chat. I just love it, man.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to be featured over on Bend the Knee. I think I was even on Heroes of the Horn once, which is quite humorous because I'm now considered a Wheel of Time hater among the book community. But I did have fun those first 4 books, and I love chatting with you guys. I remember me and Ez, we actually did I think it was the 4th book, like towards the end of it, we did an episode together because Matt, I think you were out of town for something.
Oh yeah.
And I was thinking back on that, and I said, man, that was whenever I thought I was going to really love that series. What a shame.
What a turn.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, you know what? Although I completely, Jimmy and I have very similar thoughts about, man, the 5th book of Wheel of Time. It just derailed me, took me out of it. Took me a long time to get back just to wanting to read it again. But I will say book 6, where I'm at, where we're at right now in our Wheel of Time podcast, Lord of Chaos, is like so much better. I can't even, it's like everything is back to being like, oh, things are picking up.
Yeah, you seem to be pretty into book 6, and as you
so much better.
Ez has read the series 3 times, 4 times? How many times have you read this?
At least 3. Once initially, and then once before Matt and I kind of got back into it, somewhere along the way or whatever. And then once we got into it, I was like, oh my god, I gotta like sprint back through this whole thing because it's 14 books. I was like, I gotta get ahead here. So I try to keep about 1 or 2 books ahead because Matt asks good questions, and I all the time I'm sort of like, oh shoot, man, I don't want to spoil this for somebody.
Can I not say that?
Yeah, it gets tricky. But people have been coming out of the woodwork in this last couple batch of episodes saying book 5 is or 6.
6.
Where we're at now, yeah, 6.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like we recorded it. We're early on it. It's like, man, book 6, chapter 10. For those of you Wheel of Time people, you know exactly the chapter I'm talking about. It's like everything just changed. Like the whole game just changed. And it's like, I feel like Jimmy, because you read book up to book 5,
Yes.
just read the first 10 chapters, and once you get to chapter 10, you're going to be like, I'm back in. If you don't, if you get to chapter 10 and you're not like intrigued, then I 100% am with you on like, it's not your thing.
Is this an intervention? Did I set myself up
No,
for a Wheel of Time intervention?
But I'm just gonna say, man, like I was already into it, like just the first few chapters. But the minute you finish chapter 10, like something so big happens that it's like I have to know what happens next. Like I can't, like, yeah.
Damn it.
Just give it 10 chapters.
When I'm out, they pull me back in.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Can I also just real quickly say that Matt's reads at chapter 10, 11, or what have you, and I've said to him, when you get to the end of this book, it will change things even more so forever. So like if you can kind of get through, man, the end is the most. And everyone, I said this the last episode, I was like to people who were kind of trying to like, oh man, I was kind of with you guys on like the book 5 not being really that great, and they needed that extra motivation. So I gave a motivational talk, and I said, hang in there to the end of this book, and everything will change. You will be. I just can't. Without spoiling stuff. It's just like it goes to another level.
I'm just telling you, man. Chapter 10 of book 6. So you finished 5. Just read the first 10. If it's not for you, then hey, it's not for you. But I have a feeling you'll get to chapter 10 and you'll be like, all right, well, I gotta see what happens next, and then the next thing you know, you'll be at the end of the book. Yeah. I mean, that's further than I'm at, but just like knowing how you get through books and stuff, I have a feeling. I have a feeling you'd get to chapter 10 and be like, I have to know what happens, and then you'll just be off to the races.
But to be fair, you'll probably hit another wall, though. People say in Wheel of Time, there's that second wall where you're probably gonna be like, I'm done. I mean, there's like 2 to 3 books later, you're gonna be like, and Matt hasn't got there yet, but I'm just now reaching it again in my like 3rd read through again, and I'm like, oh god, this is rough.
I've been joking with my patrons about doing a live stream where I just read the wiki and just react to the wiki.
I wouldn't.
No, people would be very upset with me.
They would. Yeah, that'd be wild though. That'd be what, because sometimes that thing is littered with spoilers.
Hey, remember the circus. Jimmy and I both felt the exact same way about book 5, where I was like, man, I was like, it's like 1 was here, 2 is like here. Okay, 3 was a little bit down, 4 was like back up, and then 5 was like I hit it. Have you ever been on? To me, when I finished book 5 of Wheel of Time, I felt as if you're like riding your bike. It's Sunday afternoon. Everything is going great. Like you're looking around, you got some music playing. Like, man, life is just great. And the next thing you know, you hit a pothole, you go up over your bike, it like flips over you, your knees scraped, and you're like, I want to go back home. You know, I mean, that was like how I felt.
I mean, you actually had
the same way.
You had a moment where you go, I might, like, you have a podcast.
I may be done.
And you were like, I might be done. I was like,
we were on the brink of shutting her down.
Ezra was trying to dig up the dead body from the grave to bring Matt back into the
dude. I mean, Matt was so dead. He was, kind of spoiler, as dead as that girl back in Tier. I mean, hey, man, I couldn't bring her back to life.
Don't want to spoil it. Yeah, man. I mean, somebody tries to use some very powerful things to try to bring this girl back to life, and hey, man, deader than that girl, and she's dead.
She's dead.
You can't bring her back.
She's DED dead.
She's dead.
We have an important question here, Ez, and this one I've been asking you for about 1.5 years now. I said, how many of this series from the last stream has Ezra started? Because the whole stream with Ezra was to build your to-be-read list.
Probably.
And he didn't read a single thing.
I should be. I was worried. I'm sweating now profusely, by the way, because you brought this up. Because I was like, I swear to God, I wasn't even so sure. I was like, if Matt brought up that he was going to be on episode number 1, which I knew he was going to, I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to bring up that I was on that one episode because I didn't follow through on anything. I started. Yeah, it's like, dude, I mean, so many things keep me. I mean, if you get my shelf, I mean, behind me here, I have so many Star Wars books. Wheel of Time in and of itself is an absolute beast for me to get through and reread. We started like Harry Potter, Song of Ice and Fire, going back through them. I do Lord of the Rings. My buddy Lane wanted to do the Silmarillion. I'm like, there is no way I can like keep all this in my head. You know, it just I couldn't do it. And then I started. What was the one? The Stormlight, right? So Stormlight, and that's actually the one I wanted to finish. I actually enjoyed the first several chapters on that. 2 chapters.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, God, because you recommend so many good series that I'm just sitting there like, well, when I retire, I don't know how you
Right.
do it, man. You guys who can just churn through like
Right.
novels, the booktubers amaze me actually.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have a different approach. You guys go in. You guys go deep
Right.
into stuff, and I actually
Yeah.
do love doing that. But for me, I'm a fiend. I'm just looking for that next hit
Right.
from the
Yeah.
next big book, right? And the whole idea of this was to find the next A Song of Ice and Fire for myself. Spoiler, I haven't found it. But it's been
Yeah.
fun. It's been fun. But I love going to your guys' channel, love going to your podcast and diving deep. Like, even though I'm not really reading the Wheel of Time right now, I still listen to Heroes of the Horn.
Yeah.
Mainly because you two are great together, but also, it's fun because there's things that even when I was reading, I was missing, and you guys would bring it up. So the fact that you guys do deep dives and really get into like the chapter by chapter stuff is something I love.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's good. It's a different beast. And Matt knows, right? I mean, that's just been
Yeah, really, because it's kind of funny because like Ez and I I feel like we don't really have the time to, because we do such deep dives into these things. We run like a full Game of Thrones. It's kind of like if we're gonna do it, like we really want to like do it like to the best. Which is why I think like I would struggle doing just sort of like what you do. Which I get like a variety thing. I mean, I do that with other stuff like video games and movies and stuff, but that's like you just watch it once and kind of go on. Whereas like a book series, I really want to dive into. The only one is like the Witcher series. Like that's one I'm like really starting to
you are, because you even picked up the graphic novel.
Picked up the graphic novel. I've actually, oddly enough, even though I'm like a big video game player and I have a full video game channel, I've actually read more of the Witcher books than I have played of the Witcher games,
which is bizarre because Witcher 3 is like one of the best games ever made.
It's amazing. I will say I've gotten a little further into that because it's so cool because you can play it on the Switch and then it cross saves to the PC, and it's like, first of all, the Switch, I don't know how the Switch version runs. Like it's pure math. It is quite literally witchcraft. However, like it's like my Switch is like on fire, like as I'm playing it. But you can cross save, and it's just so sweet. It's just that I can play it on my big monitor and everything.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Bashendo asked us, said, since we have all the Song of Ice and Fire experts present, which editions of the books do you think are the best bang for the buck? Bang for the buck? Probably the audiobooks. Really?
Oh, yeah, I love the audiobooks. Yeah, I was gonna say I love doing this thing where I just go to, so I live near Columbus and big city, and I have all these different half price bookstores. I do a tour. I literally start at North Columbus and I work my way around, and I'm always just trying to pick up one of the older, I like the covers, you know what I mean? I like to just find something that's a older edition that's cheap or whatever. I know they always repurpose, like the new stuff that comes out. I'm sort of like, I can get that anytime. But some of these things that were, back in the, 90s or what have you, not this one, obviously, but like, yeah, they're cool to, I think, find,
Yeah, somebody made fun of me because I was showing in my my Discord, I was showing off my library room that I have that I'm trying to hopefully do some chatting with Nuts from. It just takes a lot more equipment. But I have like 4 copies of Storm of Swords. And people are like, dude, how many copies of this do you own? I go, if it's in the used bookstore, I buy it. Like, I buy it every single time.
Yeah. It's sick.
I actually don't own any physical copies of A Song of Ice and Fire. Well, I own the graphic novel of Hedge Knight, and then I own the physical copy of A Knight of Seven Kingdoms, and then like the World of Ice and Fire book. But for me, it's all audiobook because that's just how if I actually try to read a book that's not like a graphic novel, I'll never touch it. Yeah. So like, and then when I get Kindle, I do the Kindle versions, especially for the stuff we do where it's like we're constantly rediving into it. Because for me, I think the way I like to do it best is the Kindle with the audiobook, and it'll actually like read and go along the words, whisper sync. It's so cool. And then you can add in notes. And one of the things I love about Kindle, especially for something like A Song of Ice and Fire, is Kindle has those things where you can see how many people have like highlighted a specific line, and it'll show you like, this is how many times people have done it on Kindle.
I love that.
It's so cool because then it's like, okay, I need to focus on that, or I need to pay attention.
There's an endorphin spike. You go, oh, this is gonna be good.
Ooh, this is gonna be good. Or like, what's Yeah.
Some of the
so-
Malazan ones, dude, whenever I would read through Malazan, like in the Bone Hunters, it's just like an entire chapter that's underlined, and I'm like, oh snap, I gotta retain all
Yeah.
this. Oh god.
So Ez is coming out to Portland in like 2 weeks. And then I was asking you the other day, Jimmy, because you're coming out for my wedding later this year. I was like, man, how long are you gonna be here? Because there's this great bookstore in Portland called Pals, which is like an entire city block, and it's like a used. There's new too, but it's mostly like a big used bookstore. It's kind of like it's kind of like one of the things to do in Portland, like even if you're not like a big book reader. But when Ez comes out, I think I'm gonna like, all right, let's go buy some like early, strange editions of A Song of Ice and Fire, so I can have physical copies just to say I do. I did get one of the early copy graphic novels of The Hedge Knight there though, so you can find all kinds of sweet stuff.
Yeah, I have those back on. I think they're actually downstairs now because I moved most of my comics and stuff downstairs. But you guys should live stream when you're in that Pals. I want to see this place because I'll check it out when I come out in September. I'll check it out that Sunday.
Yeah. Because the newer one, the artwork is the same in both, but the newer one just has like a much different.
I kind of like that cover though.
I do too. So they had the other ones. But I was like, and this says this is technically second edition, so I don't know. Apparently there must be an even older version.
Sometimes they will reprint them with the same cover.
And
just it's a second print.
Yeah.
But I like that. I don't know. People kind of crap on like the big author name, but when it's done like that, it feels like a throwback. And I it's very old school. That's Komodo's
it was $10. And it's in like great condition and everything, and there's no sales tax in Oregon either, so you get that.
Oh, here we go.
There you go.
Yeah, Jimmy, just real quick while we're talking editions there. So in Half Price Bookstore, George, he said at one point that if you had a first edition, I don't know if you guys remember this, and you sent it to him, he would actually sign any first edition that was out there. I don't know if you guys knew this. I think he still will, but he's so backed up. He's so busy. He's got all sorts. I actually don't want to bother him. I wish I had that problem. I wish I had a first edition I could send to him. But I saw one for $300. This is back when I was broke, absolutely broke, and could not buy it. But now I'm just sort of like, I would easily go buy a $300 first edition. It was crazy. It was sitting there right there on the shelf at Half Price Books, and he signs those bad boys. So
yeah, I have a first edition Storm of Swords, and I would love to get him to sign that. The only signed George book I have, I didn't get it signed myself, is the Subterranean Press version of Dunk and Egg, which is like the worst Subpress. So Subpress always does these amazing special editions. That's like the big Song of Ice and Fire collection I have back there. But their Dunk and Egg one is literally the exact same one as the mass market one, but it just comes with a sleeve. And I'm like, I kind of sucks, but at least it's signed. So it's not so bad.
That's cool.
This is a good question from Hayden. Says, with all the A Song of Ice and Fire nerds here, what is the best house, like history, characters, and aesthetic? What's y'all's favorite?
Ooh, for me, I think one of the more intriguing ones, the one that people talk about a lot, is House Dane, right, man? I mean, people are always saying House Dane is like, I don't know why. It's something. It's Sir Arthur Dane. It's that kind of the legend of the sword and everything, and just his being the sword of the morning. That's the one that people are. There's actually like not maybe a lot of history on it. Actually, when you go back and look, it's just legend and lore. But as far as characters, it's like that one's awesome, epic. People love that house.
Yeah. For me, the house I always find the most intriguing when they sort of weave their way back into the story throughout the years is House Baratheon. It's just like, Bran the Builder. Bran the Builder goes and builds Storm's End, and he uses all this like special magic and everything. But then it's like Lionel Baratheon comes back in, and like so all these people just sort of keep weaving their way back into the story, and every time it's so I always find incredibly intriguing, obviously outside of like Stark and Lannister and all the big ones.
Yeah, Baratheon is always relevant. Like they're always somewhere near, and they're always making an impact. Like Rogar is such a Chad. Like I absolutely love Rogar.
Yeah. I guess technically House Baratheon is one of the big ones, but
I have to say I think the best house is definitely Dane. Like Dane's my favorite because I feel like there's still so many outstanding questions for it. But that's also, I don't know. I like Baratheon too. Like those would be my two picks. Those are the ones I was batting around in my head. Obviously Targaryen's like an easy one because like
Well,
I
see Stark in here. Stark's the easy one. I mean, get out. I mean, come on now. What are people throwing?
Of the sort of non-great houses, You know, I think Manderley is a really intriguing house just because of like they moved and everything that's going with them. Then you have like the Blackwoods and all that, and their ties in with like the Blackfire Rebellion. So like those are really cool too.
Someone said, "Will Jimmy pull out Long Claw?" I will not, because it's downstairs, and I will not be going downstairs to get it. So unfortunately,
well, I might pull out a White Claw here in a bit.
Let's go.
Oh, Lords of the White Claw coming out. Oh my goodness.
Gosh.
Oh, there's Ben the Knee. Hey, Ben the Knee. Good to see you guys.
Who the heck's that?
So I would love for you guys to talk about, because like obviously we talk about, you guys have Hyperspace Hangout. I mean, you guys do a little bit of everything. Even have the Matt and Ez show, which is more of like a general podcast that I always find very humorous. And you guys have built such a really strong community. A lot of the people in your community have made their way over to my community. I saw Ryan Turbush in the chat. Sir Matthew Perry is obviously someone I consider like, these are good friends of mine now. So you guys have built something that is not just an entertainment platform, but you guys have built community, and you guys were honestly the blueprint for whenever I did my channel. I said, I want to be like Ben the Knee. I love what you guys have provided over the years. I mean, I've literally been a patron to you guys for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And at some points, especially during the pandemic, before I did my channel, or actually it was pre-pandemic, you know, that was really one of my big social outlets when I moved to a new area, was hanging out with you guys in the community. So I'd love for you guys to talk about how Ben the Knee came about, because I love the stories of you guys like puzzling out theories and things.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah. So I guess to say where it all started was Ez and I met in high school. It was like freshman year, and I had moved to a new school district.
Yep.
So for me, it was like I'm walking in freshman year. I know like 2 people that go to like this school. And I also went from like a graduating class of like 40 to like 350, which for a lot of people, 350 isn't like that big of a school. But for me, it was like I like, you know, more than tripled my my thing. So like, this is a lot bigger. I don't know any of these people and everything. And I think it was like Spanish class, and then I like through like sort of another person I sort of met Ez, and I became friends in like freshman year. And
Lunchroom,
really,
yeah.
And really sort of like since then, we've always just been doing like, I don't know, just like some little project or like in high school, it was like making funny videos or like
chess club.
Club. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Our chess club was not a chess club. It was more like ultimate Frisbee club and drink Mountain Dew and talk Star Wars.
Right.
Yeah. But so we've always just been like into something, you know, like into something. And so then I moved to Portland for a few years right after sort of high school and into college. And then I started a podcast, which not like we're podcasting today. It was like, you know, sort of back before like iTunes really blew up and YouTube was like still kind of becoming a thing. And I just had like this little like make your own website thing. And it was Box Trick, which is one I still run today. And Ez like even came on and like was like typing like articles and stuff like that. So then I moved back to Ohio, and then it kind of like evolved over the years into like a few different things. So like we started, and it would be us, we were like filming like sketch comedy videos on YouTube, which I still have somewhere. And so we did like a handful of of those. And like we had this other guy we were working with, and it didn't really work out very well with him. And then we're in a band, and then we started Super Gains Bros, which was really like YouTube fitness. And then it just sort of evolved into kind of what it is today, which is just my handle. And then we started a thing called Let's Look It Up, which was basically what the Matt and Ez show is now. But it was like, hey, we just want to cover like all the big stuff coming out, Star Wars, all of these things. And we were doing Game of Thrones. We actually still have somewhere.
They're still there. They're private.
We actually have our like reaction to like Hodor, and like the moment it happened, like reaction to Hodor and all of these things, which we need to pull over at some point to the Ben the Knee.
I would love to see that.
Yeah. But our Star Wars stuff started really taking off. So we were like, well, all right, we need to switch this channel and turn it into just like a Star Wars focused thing, because it was doing so well. This is like right when the sequels were out, and like everyone was like getting back into Star Wars again. And so that was Rebel Watch podcast. And then we said, okay, we still want to talk Game of Thrones and all these other things, so let's just start a different one, which was Second Breakfast. And then we were talking all kinds of stuff there, like Dragon Ball Super. We were watching it weekly, and like big movies that were coming out and Harry Potter. But we were still covering Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones was doing so much better on the numbers. Like it just wasn't even close. So I remember this conversation where we're like, all right, what do we do? Because if we want to do all this other stuff, and this was like February of 2018, and we were like, okay, well, we want to do a Game of Thrones podcast, but we were actually nervous about doing a week by week chapter summary because look, we knew the show was coming to an end, and we're like, are people still going to be in it in like 5 years or whatever?
Yeah.
And so we were just like, I remember the moment we were just thinking about it, and we were just sort of this in January, we were sort of like mulling over, like, all right, what do we do? Like, how do we do it? And then like, what do we want the logo to be? All of these things. What do we want to call it? Because we were looking at a lot of the other Game of Thrones podcasts out there, and you know, there's just some of the other ones are like they're like Radio Westeros, History of Westeros, Davos Fingers, like all cool podcasts like that. But we were like, nah, we want to be like something more like this is it, like it's this or nothing, and kind of the thing. And so then I remember I like made this logo, which was the logo we had up until like a month ago when I was like, I'm going to do like a refresh of it. And so I just showed it to Ez, and it was like, bend the knee, like over the Targaryen logo. And I was like, no, dude. I remember I walked into Ezra's room because we were living in a condo, Ezra's condo, and whatever I was rooming. And so I walked into his room, and I'm like, dude, this is it. I've got it. And I showed him the thing, and I remember Ez did the classic stand up, hands on the head. He's like, bro, like starts pacing around the room. He's like,
let's go,
baby.
Oh, dude, it was a moment. Like we will never forget that moment. Just being there, and I was just like, oh my god! Like we're looking at the numbers, we're looking at all the episodes that we did that were blowing up, and Matt was just like the message there was like, no, we are not going into this. We jokingly call it the podcasting wars. Really, we love to collaborate with everybody, things like that. But you go into it with that kind of tone or whatever, just to, because we're brand new walking in there, like we're gonna take the throne. I mean,
you want to be the best.
We're going in to take over. So.
Yeah, and the minute we switched everything to a pure Game of Thrones podcast, the numbers, like from where they were, literally like tripled in a day. Just like, I mean, like just absolutely exploded into Game of Thrones.
And you guys had
everything to Game of Thrones.
You guys had beat Joe Rogan in a week on podcast.
In season 8. Episode 3, we beat Joe Rogan on iTunes for like a day. It was like, I think it was certainly one day. But it might have been 2. It's sort of the way the iTunes numbers trickle in. But I have like all the things, because I was tracking. I was like, dude, we are like going up the ranks on iTunes right now. I'm like, this is insane. And I was like, dude, we just passed like Trevor Noah. Like, we're above Conan. Like, the next thing you know is like we were the number 3 podcast episode on iTunes. All of iTunes, not just like first it was like books, then it was arts, and then it was all of iTunes for like that one day. And it was like, dude, this is crazy.
It's
like
wild.
Matt got quoted in the was it the Washington Post or
New York Times?
New York Times.
Actually, I believe it was Jimmy that sent me the thing.
It probably was.
And said, bro, you were just quoted in the New York Times. Yeah.
Yeah, we had no idea. Someone like sent it to us, and I was getting followed on Twitter by some Washington Post like writers, columnists, and stuff. We were like going on looking for tweets and stuff. I was like, this is nuts, man. It was pretty crazy. It was wild, but
well, there's obviously big fandoms that have been around for decades, like Star Wars and things. But the thing about A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, whatever you want to call it, and things that we hope to get from Lord of the Rings on Prime, and Wheel of Time, these things is like it is a big amount of exposure to this niche group that has existed for a long time, and that's what we're doing here. And like all the readers, the people that are tuning into this, it's like a weird thing when the spotlight hits us, and hits a fandom, and it kind of blows up overnight. But there's people who are so dedicated to a fandom, whatever it may be, and to see them like get their comeuppance, to actually get their due is so neat and so cool. And it's one of the special things about content creation is that you can just be chugging along with 1,000 subscribers and doing your thing, and then overnight the
Oh, yeah.
zeitgeist takes over, and then there you are.
Yeah. Yeah, which is what, because your passion comes through. That was the thing. I think really Matt and I have always been passionate about it. And that's not something you can fake. Really, you go into it and you're super amped about it. And we went in, and I think people just responded with it. We had like our email box. We eventually had to give up on the season 8 emails that were coming in.
Yeah,
I was like, it was insane. I mean,
we couldn't keep up. Yeah, there's just too many.
Yeah, but it was
before it was manageable, and it was still like a lot of people, but it was like, oh, okay, and we had like sort of this community that was kind of cool, and then the next thing you know, it just exploded, and we weren't even doing YouTube, which looking back was an absolutely dumbest, super dumb, right? It's super dumb because it was like podcasting to us was new because we had done YouTube before, and it was just like such a grind, and then like we were posting on podcasts, and we're just like, dude, the numbers are like infinitely higher than what we're getting on YouTube. It's like, why put all that work into YouTube?
Right.
But now it's but I think it's also so much easier now too, like with like with YouTube and TikTok and all this stuff to do. And like we didn't have a lot of the technology that we use now, like StreamYard and Zoom and all that stuff. Yeah, even then you sort of had to like film it yourself, like with opposing camera. It was like too much.
Right. Well, yeah, and what we're doing right now was not very viable 5 years ago. It just wasn't. I was telling you guys before we went live, even my live stream of me packing my house up and then unpacking it, I mean, thousands of views and things like this. And it's just it's very humbling. So I thank everyone that watched that if you're tuning in now. But it's also just different. It's not what you expect. You edit up a video and you upload and you're like, this one's going to be it. This is like, people are really going to enjoy this video. And then it doesn't do so hot, but then you go live and you're just messing with your bookshelves and there's thousands of people. And it's like, I don't know. It could be whatever you want it to be now. So I'm not too shocked that you didn't do YouTube back then, because I think it was a different animal.
Right. Yeah. It's just totally different. And I would say also like podcasting itself, even in the past 5 years, is way bigger now than it was then. Cause even like you go back to 2017, like on YouTube, like podcast clips didn't do are so much different now than it was then on YouTube, like within 5 years. Like now, like everyone does it. And also like the rise of micro content with TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and everything. Like now, like people like you scrolling through TikTok and you get a podcast like host saying something and people just react to it like differently than they did even like that long ago. So it's totally different.
Yeah, it's just really interesting because it's a whole new avenue for fandoms to emerge. Brandon Sanderson's someone that has a large fandom, like crazy large, but still like relatively unknown to the masses, I would say. So it's like I've just been waiting for something from him. I mean, obviously the Wheel of Time, right? Stormlight Archive is really big in our little niche, but it's like, what's going to happen to that fandom whenever it gets the spotlight? Like so many people, like my boy Christian from Lost in Discovery has, for the love of the game, just been making these. He's working on a video right now. It's like an hour and a half of lore dives on this series. That is very small compared to the other major fandoms like Lord of the Rings and such. And it's just like, man, I hope he gets his day, And there's even some series that I read and people on my channel are big fans of, like The Faithful and the Fallen and things like this. And I'm like, the chances of it ever hitting the zeitgeist is so small, but we make the videos for the love of the game. And it's the passion that you talked about.
Well, Mistborn isn't Mistborn kind of big? I mean, it's
big. So it's big in this genre, but to give you an idea,
but it's not big outside of the
correct. So Brandon Sanderson has wrote, I don't know, like 30 books, and he still has not eclipsed George on his sales yet. He will absolutely blow him away.
Although wasn't there a Mistborn character in Fortnite?
There was, and that was a big deal. Yeah. There was a Mistborn. I don't know if it was an outfit or a character, but
that's
it was
awesome.
Apparently his next door neighbor, he knew somebody that worked.
Well, hey, if you hit Fortnite, man, like you're in.
And it will come. I think, especially with Sanderson, he has an MCU type feel. And I'm not saying that to disparage.
I'm shocked. I am genuinely shocked that. So there's no TV deal in the works or anything with it right now.
He has sold the rights. He's working on an adaptation for Mistborn, which I think would do very well.
Who picked up the rights?
That I am not sure of.
Okay.
And I could take a guess or two, but I don't know. And you bring up a good point though. because there's two steps, right? There's a step whenever I read a fantasy series that I really love, and I'm like, oh my god, it got like Greenbone Saga is very popular, written by Fonda Lee. It's phenomenal. It's a trilogy. I haven't read it, but like I've literally not heard a bad thing about it. So it got picked up, and I was like, dude, that's kind of sick. Like that's great. So that's the first stage. Then the second stage is, yeah, but who's making it? And I think it's Paramount has this one.
Okay, for Sanderson.
Or for Fonda Lee's Greenbone
okay.
Saga.
Yeah.
And it's like, like, could it have been HBO? Could it have been, I mean, really, I always just bank on HBO because they're the most consistent. I always,
putting on good products.
It says on Wikipedia, DMG Entertainment, who I don't believe is owned by anyone. I think they're one of these like third
they're going to
party
shop it around. Yep.
Yeah, but they have been the head of a handful of pretty large movies. Twilight, Red, remember that movie with like Bruce Willis? Looper, Iron Man 3, even though Marvel,
I remember liking
that, right?
Looper, but I don't remember if was a good opinion. You know what I mean? I'm like, I enjoyed it.
It's certainly in hands of things that's done, big stuff, and then it's going to still have to succeed on its own. Ultimately, it's going to depend on who
do people people buy, so they buy that and then they're looking to pitch it for him.
They'll shop it around. I mean, I think it's not exactly similar to this, but I know that Sony actually did the Wheel of Time show, right? And then Amazon.
Okay. So really a lot of times you'll see that where the rights of things, it's actually kind of weird too, because sometimes like Paramount, let's say, Viacom, Paramount, whatever, CBS, like that's their thing. Sometimes one of their shows like that they produce will end up being on ABC, which is ultimately owned by Disney. It's just sort of the way it works sometimes, just because it's like, well, whatever, it doesn't fit in our time slot anymore. Hey, do you want to pick it up? And then they all make deals with each other or whatever. But ultimately does kind of come down to who ends up picking it up and owning. So if they own the rights, then they're sort of one of these just production companies. They can ship it to, they're not necessarily owned by anybody, which might be the best thing, because that way they can ship it off to whoever. And then it's not then owned as like an intellectual property by, say, Disney or Warner Discovery or Paramount or any of these things. Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting, because DMG, apparently, according to this commenter, Mythical Thinker, says DMG also owns the rights to Grace of Kings, which it's a quartet. It's a relatively like small series, right? But it's written by Ken Liu, who has won a ton of awards. And it has like an Asian silk punk setting. And it's very good. I'm actually reading the final book right now. I got it early, and I think it would make great television, because some of the characters, like I've seen some people say the characters feel a little bit flat. And I think if you could put that on the screen and bring them to life, that you could have a big hit with the Dandelion Dynasty and Grace of Kings. And then obviously they have Sanderson stuff. Also, it looks like Peacock picked up Greenbone Saga, which
we'll
see.
It's kind of NBC, I think, is, I don't know. It's kind of weird. They're still really good at producing the, like, I don't know. Like they're still really good at that sort of like general TV, like 23 episode. Like oddly enough, they might actually be the best company at that format. But I would say that they are by far one of the worst companies in the new format, which is like the streaming service, like really high done 8 to 10 episode quality shows.
Yeah, it's a question of whether they're going to lean into the strengths or they're going to try to be HBO. Like that's what it comes down to with a lot of these shows. I know you were really disappointed, Matt, in the Halo show, right?
Actually, so I watched the first episode and I was like, not feeling it. I watched the second one and I really thought it was a lot better. And then our mutual friend, Sir Matthew Perry, who we have a group chat with, as Jimmy, myself, and 2 of our other buddies, one of which Ryan, who's in the chat right now. Yeah. He said he loved it. And then I always talk about my mom, because my mom is like she like binges everything that like exists on television.
Watched The Expanse. She watched
Game of Thrones in like a week. Like
she needs her own channel. She needs her own channel.
She does.
And so she texts me like every day, because so she gets off work like early East Coast time, and I'm out in Portland, Oregon, West Coast time. So like she messages me now, like whatever we're watching right now, it's Kenobi, and she's like, oh my god, best episode of Kenobi, like loved it, all this stuff. And so she like Jimmy has been pushing me very hard. Every time I talk to her, she's like, have you watched The Expanse yet? Yeah. She's like, so I'm like, my buddy Jimmy's always telling me to do the same thing. But she said she actually thought, and she obviously knows nothing about the games, but she said that she thought Halo improved a lot over the season.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm willing to give it another shot. It's gonna be a bit though, because it's like so much stuff is coming in the next like 3 weeks. It's like it's just insane.
Connor says that we need a chatting with nuts with Matt's mom and then my mom,
Serious, dude,
who's
Oh,
always
yeah.
in the chats. So my mom, let me tell you how much I love the book community, folks. Okay, my mom attends all my streams. That's cool. That's amazing. I love it. Right. But then I found out she's not just watching my streams. She's watching other booktubers streams. And I'm like, Mom,
man.
Mom, what are you doing? No,
Wow.
and now she's laughing at me on live, television here.
It is, yeah.
I go to check out
it is fascinating though, like
she has friends. She's friends with some of my patrons. And I'm like, yeah, talk to your mom. And I'm like, excuse me? Like,
Excuse
are you
me,
insulting me? Or, like, is this a your mom joke? Is that what we're doing? They're like, no, literally, I was talking. She was in Alan's streams. And I'm like,
right.
Oh my God. I'm jelly right now. I want to know.
Well, I tell you the thing, hey man, this is the power of fantasy books, like my mom, who's like a hardcore binger, she watches like every show that exists, like she loves superhero, all the stuff. She like is not the kind of person I would ever imagine who would like pick up like a fantasy book series or whatever, but she watched Shadow and Bone season 1 and loved it so much that she was like, I had to buy the books because I had to know what happened, and read like all the books. I think there's 3, maybe. I'm not.
There's like a sequel or a prequel.
Right. Anyway, she read them all. She read like all 3 books or whatever, like within like a weekend. She was like,
can we
she's
bring
like,
her
I was
on
just
the
addicted.
podcast, man?
She was like, she was addicted to it, and I was just like, okay, it's great.
People do love that series. It's a YA series, but like, and also that adaptation is like people love it. And I watched the first episode.
I've only heard
good
things about it. Yeah, I've only heard good things about it. Yeah.
I think you would like it. I could see you getting into it. I think if I had more people to talk about it with, I would finish the show. I don't know if I'll probably read the books one day because why not?
All right.
But it was a show where I watched the first episode and I didn't really have anyone to talk about it with, and I was like,
yeah. Well, I don't know. Hey, my mom said that the books were great, and she was also, her and you are the only people who are like on a consistent basis tell me that I have to start The Expanse. So
I've been trying to get Ezra to watch The Expanse for 2 years.
No, hey, well, one thing I have seen it. I've seen it.
What?
I'm all caught up except for the last season.
I haven't watched the last season either because I'm not ready for it to be over. Like, yeah, I'm like, I don't want it to be over, dude.
I heard that the story goes on, or we're on a different, like the books are different, right? I mean, it's like
so there's a time jump in the books, and they are not completing the time jump.
Okay. So, but Anthea says Shadow and Bone 3, 6 of Crow 2, King of Scars 2. So I think she only read the 3 Shadow and Bones books.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and one of them's a prequel. But the interesting thing about this adaptation, just like the Wheel of Time show, changed a lot of stuff. But people love the Shadow and Bone changes and hate the Wheel of Time changes. It's fascinating.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Shadow and Bone is the one that has like the great, like this divide thing that you cross.
Yeah, they like take.
I have seen a
ship or something in this big black storm. I mean, the visuals for Netflix. I mean, it was really good. I was impressed.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't even know it had a book series. I watched it. I didn't even know it. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Eventually, I have an interview on Tuesday, which if it goes well, I will now be working like 3 days a week. Which means I'll be way much more content heavy. If that happens, don't know, man. We may have to start a new Witcher podcast because I just have a feeling
that's got an itch.
I have a feeling that once Ez really starts to get into the books, he's going to be like, "This is like really good."
I read The Last Wish. Really enjoyed it.
So you did? Okay, you did read The Last Wish.
Yeah, I read The Last Wish. That's the first one. Right?
The first one, yeah. Well, whenever you want to talk about The Witcher, man,
wait, Jimmy, you didn't like it?
Oh, I really liked it.
Oh, you liked it?
No, it's good. Yeah. As I do think, and Jimmy, I think the second one, Sword of Destiny, because The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny are just short stories, but once you hit like Blood of Elves, like it just gets so much better.
Bro, I have
not that those are bad, but
I have this dream of you two getting into at least one of my favorite fantasy series and then doing the deep dive podcast, and then we could do it together and it would be so much fun. I think
we got to be very particular.
We have to be very specific. And I tried Malazan, which now Jimmy's gonna get a million dislikes because pronounced it Malazan.
You can pronounce it any way you want.
Malazan, whatever. I tried it, man. I don't know. It's just I think it's one
It's
you
different.
really have to be. Maybe you just have to really be in like the right sort of zone to like hyper focus on. And
yeah, it's also very
yeah.
niche. Like it's not going to work for everybody. It has a dedicated fan base. Like I actually love that fandom so much, and I loved making content. I don't think I've ever had as much fun since A Song of Ice and Fire talking about a book series than Malazan.
Yeah.
That's why I did those big spoiler streams. But
yeah,
they're hard to do on audio.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion. I think they're very hard to do on audio, and it is just a different kind of experience.
yeah.
The one that I think that you guys should do, and this is also, to be honest,
besides The Witcher,
yeah. I think Stormlight by Sanderson's the way to go, because it will without a doubt get an adaptation someday. There's no way it won't. And also it's the biggest ongoing fantasy series, and I think you guys would see big numbers. And I have this dream of you and Lost in Discovery collaborating, because I love his videos, and you two going back and forth would be a lot of fun. I really think that
you'd have
you
to
guys
be in on it, because I don't know if we could.
I'd be so in. I'd be down.
The heavy there,
because I think because I would say that there is somewhat of a theme to the things we do, and it's everything we do has an adaptation to it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what, for whatever reason, for me, and this is why I love comics and stuff too, which as in we just started really kind of diving into comics as well. I love the idea of like, how are they going to tell this story?
Yes.
Right. Like,
yes.
And then, because then you sort of get to sit back and you get to sort of play like creator a little bit, and you get to sort of envision in your mind. And we could probably start talking about the Jon Snow thing now.
Yes,
if you want, now that we're like 46 minutes in.
I think we're getting a lot to say. I will say this: people are saying in the chat, Dark Tower is also one that I would love to see you guys cover, because it is the most ridiculous series I've ever read in my life.
I read the Dark Tower book a long time ago. But I would be
because you read the Gunslinger, right?
Yeah,
dude. It's not terribly long, and it is ridiculous. Like seeing Ez react to some of the things that are said.
Oh god,
so he would be so red in the face, dude.
We make flip art. We make it.
So we actually and then we can dive into John. Well, we have to tell our R+L = J story first. But one, actually, we had a logo, we had a name. I think we even had music. I don't know that I want to say the name of the podcast, because it's so good that if we ever decide to do it, I want to
give it a remember.
I don't want to keep it. But we almost did Twilight. I literally, Jay's like, only because it would be like, because the general idea would be it's Ez and I doing it, so it's kind of like, here's bros doing it. You'd be like, bro, let me tell you something. All right. I'm team Jacob all the way. All right. Just like, and it'd just be like it'd be almost.
I am actually
like
team
a comedy.
I've read it,
a comedy element.
Yeah. No, it would be very lighthearted. There'd be a ton of jokes, and I actually think it'd be largely successful.
Yeah.
Right. I will say, man,
we had that idea.
I will say I blitzed through the first book, and I thought it was great. I'm not gonna lie. Have
you not read the rest of them, Matt?
I've only read the first one, but honest to God, I was like, it was good. I mean, it's just like,
I know they're not actually that there. I mean, it's that teen,
millions of people like them.
Yeah. I mean, I went into it because I had seen the movies, but so I went into it and just kind of like, I don't know, the book, it's just a good story. Like, I mean, structurally, it's very well done. Like every chapter, you're like, I'm ready to go on to the next one. I was like shocked at how addictive it was. Okay. So let me tell our R+L = J story first.
Yeah, and then we give a disclosure. Okay. We'll say R+L = J. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. It's just it's not my fire thing. I don't want to spoil anything.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. So R+L = J is this enormous theory that is incredibly popular in Game of Thrones and probably A Song of Ice and Fire. Probably the single most like known or whatever theory. Anyway, so. And it all has to do with like sort of parentage of this character or whatever. So anyway, so this is like, because I think this was like season 3 of Game of Thrones, because Ez was like, dude, you got to watch this show. And he had like season 1 on DVD or something. I was like watching it on my laptop. Remember when you had to like open the side of your laptop?
Disc trays?
Yeah, open the side of your laptop, stick it in, it opens up, then you got to scroll over to like the play button. Then like season 2 I torrented. But so I was I was super intrigued, and like we started getting on the wiki, and I was like, I know we're looking ahead, but I was like, dude, we got to figure this out. And so Ez and I remember this because we were working out a lot, because this is when this was when it was like in the winter, and Ez's mom was sick,
right?
And so I went over to Ez, because where my dad lives and Ezra's mom lives, because I came back to go to college, and then Ez came back to be with his mom. So there's like 4 minutes apart out in the country, which is basically your next door neighbor.
Yeah.
So anybody who lives in the real country knows that, right? So I go over to Ez's, and he had this punching bag in his garage, and so we go over there and we work out. We set up space heaters. We were just like working out, doing our thing.
Oh my god!
And so
but
so Ez had like, it was like in February, and it's like super cold. Be like space heaters go, and we were just sort of working out, hanging out in the garage, because Ez had a lot of family coming over.
Yep.
Like aunts and uncles and stuff. So like the inside of the house was just like packed, like tons of people. So
we
always sort of,
yeah.
So he escaped, and he's like, dude, I just want to go to the garage workout. So I came over, and we're just hanging out. And where I remember we're wearing like gym shorts and like flannel like shirts, like in the garage, like hitting the punching bag or whatever. It's ridiculous.
It's the most high thing I've ever heard.
It is. So we're like on my laptop, we're trying to figure this thing out, and like I start piecing together this theory, and I'm like, hold on a second, dude, like this doesn't add up. And I'm just like, wait a second, why would this guy go all the way here, and then like she's here, but then like he comes back, and I was just like, oh my god, like it all clicks. So anybody who knows the theory, because I don't want to give it away, because it's like the biggest thing in A Song of Ice and Fire,
right?
Like it all clicked in my head, and I was like, dude, I think. And I just like say it.
Oh yeah.
And Ez, who's over there, the punching bag, turns, hands on the forehead.
Yeah.
Dude, it starts facing like, you know, just the hands on the forehead, like, oh my god.
And to be clear, like you didn't have the YouTube videos explaining it to you. You weren't on the wiki.
Nothing.
Nothing.
You guys just came to the conclusion.
We were on the wiki, but remember that theory, which is shown in the show, isn't. We're not there in the books yet, and still could be different in the books. But so, because it was like season 3 of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And so we're like, I think, piecing it together, and I hadn't gone to any forums or anything. And so then I was like, I put it together, and I was like, oh my god, dude. We like start pacing around, like we figured it out. Like,
yeah, we thought we had it, man.
We thought
we were like,
you thought you were the only two people.
We're on to something here, dude.
We almost made Ben and E right then and there, because we're like, dude, we gotta tell them.
Right.
And so then we like search it. Then we're like, okay, well, hold on, let me do a Google search for this. And then it's like, billions of Reddit forums and like everything. Like, oh, yeah.
We're a little late to the party.
For that like 5 minutes though,
it was awesome.
That's what it's all about, though, man.
Was blown, and I was like, wait a second, we like sat there. Matt was reading something to me. He was talking this through. I was like, well, yeah, he's also kind of like this, and like we're going back and forth, and I'm, and it just starts to dawn, and then he says it, and I'm like, yeah.
And I would say, great, Fantasy Fanatic here with a comment. Wait, you came up with the season 3, so we hadn't read the books. We had only seen the show, and we had like sort of pieced it together. And the show does not mention some of these characters as much. So like we were working on it I will say though, it really only took us about like an hour to piece together, like with that little limited knowledge. Like, so like,
yeah, it's not difficult to really get there, but when you first get into it, you're like, hold on a second, we're on to something here. And when you don't know, you haven't looked on Reddit, you haven't looked up anything, you're not doing any of the forum checks or whatever, you just get into the series. Because I'll even say, having read through it like the first time through, it's not supposed to be super, super obvious out the gate. Something's up.
When you read it jumps out the page.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, every time. It just like screams.
Like, we get it, Ned. Like, promise me, Ned. We get it, Ned.
Right. Yeah. I will say though that the way that scene is handled in the show, I'd say to you all the time in our little group chat, Jimmy, I was like, it's my favorite moment in the series. The song that they play in it, I listen to like on a daily basis. I even have custom edits that I've made of my own to like alter it and shift
So
it
good.
around. It's the music in that series is so freaking phenomenal.
I love that story, and I wanted you guys to tell it because, like, first off, the image of you guys boxing in flannels in the garage in winter is like my favorite thing ever.
Yeah,
But it's also like, I mean, it's pretty telling of your guys' friendship because as you were going through a really tough time, you know, and you guys were together talking, and it shows just how special it is to be a part of, you know, a fandom or to be into something like this, and how this stuff really does transcend entertainment and becomes something that can really help us out through tough times. And I love that story. It's funny, it's touching, and it also reminds me of all the times wherever I'm reading even lesser known series like Realm of the Elderlings or something, and I figure something out and I'm by myself and I look at my wife and I go, "You're not going to believe this." And she's like, "What?" And I explain it to her. She's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand." Like,
right.
this is a big deal, you know? And there's nothing like that. Like, no other forms of media, you know, I mean, you have a TV shows, you have books. You don't really get that anywhere else, even in video games and such. Like, I don't feel that sense of accomplishment as much whenever I figure out something that a storyteller has like breadcrumbed you to. So incredible.
Yeah, which I think is one of the reasons and that I think if you look at a lot of the stuff as and I cover, it's all stuff that has sort of a book adaptation with the show adaptation, which is like, how are they going to do it? It's one of the things I love about Wheel of Time is I think the most fun thing is like, how are they going to fit this in? And then you start to get a play like, well, what would you cut? What wouldn't you cut? And I think that's just kind of fun because especially for people who've read like a whole series, is it's sort of a way to get to reimagine something and be like, well, no, you have to have this, or no, you like have to have this part of the story. And I think that's what makes it like really sort of, you know, like intriguing is like, let's just say, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that's coming out, not the thing we're about to talk about, but like,
how about Prime? Lord of the Rings on Prime.
Yeah, I mean is there a bunch of source material?
I guess not really because they only have the appendices.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, guys. That one's like a little dicey. I'm not gonna lie.
The source material is the struggle. Yeah.
But you could even take, for instance, you could just take like House of the Dragon. Like that would be a good example, probably.
Yeah. That's even still more of like a sort of outline. You know what I mean? It's like Jimmy, I don't have any knowledge of it, but I was like, hey, you have to make a movie adaptation of the first Stormlight book. What are you keeping? What are you cutting?
It's about
like
there's
you
get
2.5 hours to tell that story. How you doing?
It's tough.
It's tough, you know. And I try to. I'm actually pretty I forgive a lot of stuff in adaptations, and I can get by things. But there is like this hypercritical nature of adaptations where if it's not one for one, we feel like that means it's bad, and that's just not the case. Like that just isn't how television works.
Can't do that.
This is heresy, but there's even some stuff in the other seasons of Game of Thrones that are arguably better in the show. Arya serving Charles Dance rather than Bruce Bolton, you know, in Harrenhal. Like I think that was a great switch. Much better in the show.
One of the ones I love is the "What do we say to the God of Death?" Not today. That's not even in the book. But George wrote that episode.
You know another.
I mean? So, like,
and it's like, did he have more ideas?
Is that in his head canon somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, another adaptation that does so well is Starship Troopers, which is a parody of its book. Its book is actually like very serious. Like it's not funny, but Starship Troopers, the movie, is hilarious. And the best line is, "I'm doing my part. That's not in the book." And it's like, that is the tagline of Starship Troopers. And people don't know.
Everyone who I've ever talked to who's read it, it was just like, dude, like, like they're just so, you know, like they're like, the book is like polar opposite from the show. They're like, couldn't be more different.
It's like propaganda almost. And then the movie is literally just making fun of it. It's so good. I love that. That's an example. You can change something, right? Even the tone has changed, and it's good. It's really, really good.
Well, look at Dune. I mean, it's like, I've never watched the original movie, but like I sort of watched the new one, and I was like, I love this thing. So then, like, I asked my brother, one of my older brothers, who's like, it's his single favorite book ever, and he's read Wheel of Time and all this other stuff, and he loves it. He's like, Wheel of Time is my favorite series, but he's like, Dune is my absolute favorite book. And I was like, how could you even cram this into like 2 hours? Because I'm watching this new movie, and I'm like, okay, I can see where the second half's gonna go. And now I just did a wiki read because I'm probably not gonna ever read the book of like what happens. And I was like, dude, you know what I mean? Like, you imagine making the first movie and be like, all right, we're going to cut this out. We're not going to prolong this. It's just, yeah.
You know, and it's weird because certain stuff you can cut, certain stuff you can. You got to get it right. There's an equation, there's a secret sauce, and you have to figure it out. And kudos to the people who do, because I think it's a pretty tall task. A really big tall task, and this is how I'm going to transition into this.
Yeah,
is doing a post Game of Thrones show, which for those who are not aware today, there was a report, I think it was from the Hollywood Reporter, saying that there are early development stages of a sequel to Game of Thrones show coming up the pipes, starring Jon Snow and Kit Harington being reprised for the role. Very interesting. You'd be called a spinoff when it was like the main character, but whatever. This is interesting. For a multitude of reasons. But what I want to say before we dive in, one, if you haven't seen the show and you don't want anything to be spoiled and you're waiting for when's when or whatever, you probably don't want to listen to this part, because we are going to talk about some of the ending points of the show. But secondly, this is in development stages, which is where a lot of my gripes are going to come with some of the reaction that I've seen with this. This is in development stage. There was The Long Night went all the way to pilot and got canceled. So just because it's in development, everyone's kind of freaking out one way or the other. There's a good chance this gets cut. Like I shouldn't say a good chance. There's a good possibility that anything could happen at this point.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess to open up the conversation is I did a poll here, my lovely viewers on my community tab today. And we had how many votes? We had 340 votes. 26% said, sure, why not, to a Jon Snow sequel show. 57% said, I don't want it. And a good 17% said, you know nothing, Jon Snow. And
Wow,
I was kind of surprised by this, because we were talking a little bit earlier, Matt and Ez, when we were in our group chat, and we were saying how a lot of the TV show watchers, like if you go to the Game of Thrones subreddit, or you look on Twitter, people who are just show watchers, it actually seems kind of like a positive reception. I'm not going to say there aren't some people who are, saying some negative things, but book readers, I mean, if you go to the subreddit for A Song of Ice and Fire, again, on Twitter or wherever you communicate, it's not good. Like they're a little upset. Obviously, my channel is going to be mostly book readers. So they're not going to like my opinion whenever I say that I think would be excited about this. But it's interesting. What do you guys make of this news? This is huge.
It's epic.
As I'll let you go first, because then yeah.
Well, here's the thing. People think, again, HBO has George, right? I mean, they've actually this was a big deal that they brought him, and they said he's helping them develop shows and he's working for them now, right? I mean, he's also working on Winds of Winter, but like, I kind of feel like he can do whatever he wants. Just like Matt brought up that R+L line, right? George comes in and can say, hey, this is a line I have, or this is a thought that I have in terms of where we can go with a movie or like a TV episode. He can do whatever he wants. If he says the story goes on, I mean, they left it open. Danny's like taken away. I mean, I don't know. We don't want to get like, well, I guess, yeah, it's a show, whatever. Yeah, there's so much you can do. There's so much you can do. They send him beyond the wall. They want to continue the story. I'm all for it, actually, as long as George, if there's more story to tell, I feel like he does have more story. I mean, his stories only ever seem to just expand. I think the biggest problem he has is actually bringing stuff back together and like finding a way to like bring it to an end. And that's this kind of ironic that this Jon, adaptation is coming out or it's in development because the story continues with George, I don't know. I also feel like so many things were, he gave them endings that we didn't see in season 8. There was more. He wanted more seasons. He wanted more stuff. So it won't surprise me at all if this comes out and is a continuation of the story. And I love it. I love the idea that we're going to have Jon Snow back and continue on. I'm actually more excited for some of the like Robert's Rebellion, the prequel stuff. I'm really more excited for them to do that. But I also get why HBO would say we're doing this because it continues the story. And we're going to move forward. The most exciting thing about the Skywalker saga or in Star Wars, what would really keep it going would be to continue on the timeline. Instead of going back and filling in holes and pieces, like the more lucrative option is to continue on. If you can do it correctly and if you can do it, with and tell a good story, then it would work. But I'm excited. I heard about it last night. And I haven't, I've given it a little bit of thought just in terms of what they could do. And I know we're not probably going to talk about the specifics on it and theorize, but in general, I'm just excited to see it. And I think there's a way forward with it.
Yeah. I think you said a lot of things that I'm thinking as well. Matt, how do you feel before I go on a tangent?
So, okay. So one, let me say just how I feel about it as just from like, as a fan. So as just a Game of Thrones fan, if it ends up being awesome, then like great content beats anything. Like, is it going to tarnish Game of Thrones? Is it going to tarnish any of this other stuff? No, not if it's good, right? I mean, that's sort of the thing. I think like you look at Star Wars and you look at the Star Wars sequels. Well, the majority of people didn't think they were good. So does that mean that any content like post Return of the Jedi could be bad? No, because they came out with the Mandalorian and it was awesome. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things. You can always make something that's good, even if it does move around or change, you know, whatever. As long as the narrative is good, just make quality content. That's the thing. So I'm totally excited for it. I will also say, I saw some people saying we're out of source material. What's to say we are? Like, what's to say actually that we are? Because like the final 2 books aren't written yet. What's to say that George isn't sitting there saying, yeah, you know, I was going to do this or I wasn't going to do that. George is like working with Warner on Warner Media with all of this stuff. Like they hired him, like they gave him like a reportedly 5-year, you know, like what is it? 7-figure a year deal. So probably 10 million a year. So he's probably getting paid $50 million for 5 years work to advise and work on help on all of these shows. So I'll also say, from my sort of like where I get most of my news is I'm always watching CNBC and I'm watching all these other stuff. And like, so from that side of the equation is I've been saying on our show and everything, I was like, one of the things I don't think people realize, because, you know, if you look at it just from like a fan perspective, you're not paying attention to all the business and where all the money's going and everything. But like Warner Brothers was sold by AT&T, who owned it towards the back half of Game of Thrones. And AT&T is a phone company. They should never be in charge. They should never be, you know, in charge of like a media company. It's just a bad idea. I mean, like, if you actually go back and look at the projects that Warner Brothers did across the board during the time that they were owned by AT&T, a lot of in the last decade, almost all of the flops come within the time period in which they were owned by AT&T. So now they sort of merged with, but are controlled by the Discovery Channel people. So David Zaslav is the new CEO, and he's like the guy from Discovery Channel. And within like minutes, he made all of these like big, huge executive decisions where they fired the head of like Warner Movies. And they're beginning to restructure the company much more to the way that Disney is run, actually with some help from Bob Iger, who was the former CEO of Disney for like 30 years. Because he and the new CEO do not like each other at all. Like they absolutely hate each other. So he's like now on a war path to like destroy Disney.
Little Black rebellion.
Yeah. So anyway, so Warner is beginning to sort of say, we want what Disney has, which is our key pillars. So for them, they're like, okay, that's going to be DC, like DC, Harry Potter, you know, like Cartoon Network, CNN, and like that's going to be like sort of our pillars of it. The Westeros verse sort of falls still under the like HBO umbrella, which was the only like key executive who has been at Warner Brothers for a very long time not to get like fired, or who's having like he was like the one person they're like, we're not touching HBO. Like HBO clearly does such a good job. So those guys can pretty much do whatever they want over
what we're trying to say is HBO knows what they're doing.
They know what they're up to.
They absolutely know what they're doing. And they've said like, hey, we are doubling down and we want to like outpace or like compete with Netflix and Disney Plus on this key content thing. And Westeros is going to be a very large part of it.
They also grew last quarter.
Yeah, I would actually be completely shocked if we got this detail if it weren't in production, not the other way around.
Yeah. So to your point, I think there's a lot of people, and this is a bizarre take to me. And I might sound pretentious here. I don't really care. There's a lot of people go, well, look how bad HBO screwed up Game of Thrones season 7 and 8. And it's like, I don't know why that's said. One, you could say, well, look at the first you know, if you want to even cut it down to 4, the first 4 seasons were amazing. Did you give HBO credit for that? No, you didn't. But also, the D&D was the core reason of this show failing, right? And if you were sitting and if you're not interested, like I saw Christian saying he's not interested, that's fine. He can go read Stormlight, Christian. Get out of here. That's totally fine. However, the people who are betting against HBO making a at least good show, it's brave. It's a big move. Because HBO, they've made some okay shows in the past.
Yeah, okay.
Just a couple. Just a couple.
Slightly.
Yeah. Deadwood, The Wire,
Sopranos. I don't know.
Yeah, The Sopranos. Yeah.
So, and the reason why I'm saying this is because I look at the takes like this. I say, okay, the extreme side of the equation when I look on the internet is I don't want this. This show is going to be terrible. They're dumb. Blah 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 blah. The other take is, oh, I'm kind of excited to see how it is, and I guess I'll judge it whenever I see a trailer or a pilot. And I feel like that's a more reasonable take. So when I look at the fandom, I just think some people look really silly. I'm not saying it's going to be good. I'm not saying this is going to be the greatest thing ever. Oh my God. Am I like, oh, I'm kind of optimistic, cautiously optimistic, or want to see where it goes? Sure. Yeah. So when I look at that, I say, this group over here is really annoying. This group over here seems to be willing to bide time. I'm probably going to go with the biding time crew.
Yeah. So real quick. So AT&T began their purchase of HBO or of Warner Brothers, in like 2015, ultimately closed in 2016. That coincides with season 5 into season 6 of Game of Thrones. And what happened in season 5 and season 6 of Game of Thrones? Oh, that's when people said the quality began to dip. Now, is that a connection to the fact that we were out of potentially source material, or does it have something to do with the new heads in charge of the entire thing? Because
people do underrate how much the heads of companies have
the executives
power. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it might even be Bookborn. And maybe it wasn't Bookborn. Somebody showed or it was a Twitter thread, I think. They were showing I can't remember what the show was, but how much Disney had to say about what went into the show, scene by scene. I mean, it's crazy the amount of control that executives have over creative.
And the first time that there was ever a consecutive ratings dip in Game of Thrones was in season 5. That's when sort of the Dorne arc came in. Now, it could have been the Dorne arc, but it's also interesting that the Dorne arc, which we know in the books was a very key component. So was that, a thing of this, you have this brand new CEO of a company who's like a phone company. The whole reason AT&T bought Warner Brothers was because their ideas, which in theory was a decent idea, was everyone has phones. We want to package streaming with phones. So that was sort of their whole deal. So was that potentially the shift to what said, we got to stop this Dorne stuff now, because it's a new company and they took on an insane amount of debt to buy it in the first place.
Yeah.
They took on $80 billion worth of debt to buy it.
Yeah. Doing an autopsy on a show is difficult too, because there's so many different factors in it. But when I look at the body of work HBO's done,
right.
I trust, I'll tell you what, if anyone's going to do a show, do I want it to be on Netflix? No. Do I want to be on Amazon Prime? Right. Hell no. Do I want it to be on HBO? Yeah. Okay. So we're already at the good foundation there. And I don't necessarily think there's a big risk in going, oh, well, kind of excited to see how that goes. Right. It's very strange to me. It just seems like the default is for instance, you were talking about this earlier, Matt. It's a good point. A lot of people said when Robert Pattinson was cast as Batman, that was the dumbest thing. They're killing Batman. It's going to be terrible. So why not just be open-minded and go, hey, maybe it'll be good.
Yeah. Everyone complains about honest to God, most people complain about every casting until they see it. I mean, 2 years ago, everyone's like, wow, Twilight Batman, all this stuff. And then the Batman movie comes out and it's
best movie we've seen in ages.
I mean, it was like, wow, this is it's a top tier Batman movie. Everyone's like, this is freaking amazing. So yeah, it's just as soon as something's announced, everyone wants to trash. I will say though, the funny thing is that a lot of the talk about Game of Thrones is always season 8. When House of the Dragon got announced, it was like, oh, season 8, can't do it, whatever. Then the House of the Dragon trailer started coming out, and
So
the tone on Twitter began to change a little bit. Like there's still like the people who are like, it sucks, I hate it, whatever. But last night, I remember as soon as the thing was announced, I went to Twitter, and like I would not tell you the number of comments that are like, you know what, low key excited for this. Like hope this gives it redemption. Like maybe they could redeem it. Maybe they could. And it shifted from like no's to maybes. So I mean, if it comes out and it's great, then let's go.
Yeah, and also if people aren't interested, they don't have to watch it. That's totally fair, right? But I think a large amount of people are going to be watching House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon, I feel good about that show going in. We'll see what happens.
How would you? So what do we? I guess what do we want the Jon show to be? Like a mini series? Like
I would love a miniseries. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of.
A post Game of Thrones miniseries,
maybe
because there is stuff you could do.
Oh, there is. I mean, I did see a lot of people say, "What do you do?" But there is a chance that you get to finish out White Walker stuff, maybe in a different way, or
Val.
it's more Val's huge. I've heard also some people talk about Fagon.
You could.
That'd be wild.
Okay. Yeah.
What about just Tormund and John riding around episodically?
You know, what about?
I
guess I don't know if I want to spoil it because those are like book stuff, you know, whatever. But like, there's a certain character who dies at the end of the series who's carried off, and we had previously seen that character talking to somebody who could resurrect somebody, and that character who could resurrect somebody was never shown. But that was like the big like immediate like if they ever did something like this is a route you could go.
Yeah.
What's to say?
They're doing it, guys. They're flat out doing it. The point is that like to spit some obvious here, you have the House of Dragons gonna be awesome. It's gonna be great. We have source material. We have all these things that are in the histories. But one of the best things about where I think Game of Thrones was awesome, and it had all those great seasons all the way up through, season 8, season 7, all those things that were so popular. Why they went beyond. Actually, they were just great. But then they go beyond like what's in the source material. Right. Like this would go, people say, beyond the source material or whatever. Again, you have George working on it. And the point is that people sit around that water cooler and we will all be doing it. What happens next? Well, we have no idea because Winds of Winter is not coming out. Right. I think Connor over here made a great comment about like, well, is this going to deter from some of this? Are people now going to be saying things like, well, George hasn't, this is another project maybe where he hasn't finished Winds of Winter, is not going to. Fellas, I think all three of us think that Winds of Winter is coming out pretty daggone soon, actually.
Yeah, we're the most optimistic people in the world after that last update. We were, I mean.
Yeah. And to be fair, Warner, right, is more willing to work with the creators of its content, even though they own like the publishing rights, than like any other company is. I mean, heck, George Lucas owns like 2% of Disney, and they were very sort of like arms at bay with him on the Star Wars sequel movies.
They were worried he was going to go prequel CGI. They were
like and he owns 2% of the company because like he got like $4 billion over there. Warner is still working with J.K. Rowling on the Fantastic Beasts movies, even though they continue to decline, and they're still willing to like bring her back and work with her. Like, they signed George to this huge deal. I mean, would you rather have George be part of it, or would you rather just have them be like, all right, we're just going to milk it for everything it's worth? So that's like, to me, that's the best thing about this is if George is there, like even better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. He's almost like none of these signing off on stuff, but yeah, he's definitely involved, and they're talking to him and helping with some of the development of these things. He has stuff penciled out. I mean, people are saying in the chat here, close for Winds of Winter to be finished. I don't think his story really got told, and I think there's a lot of things. The obvious one you mentioned, Danny, and then his sisters and Bran. I mean, God, there's so many characters still alive that there's a story that could still be told, and it's
And I will say, I did see a Game of Thrones content creator today say that, like when George shut down the Robert's Rebellion one that got talked about. But like the Robert's Rebellion one being in production did not hit the level that this did. Like those were like, it's like today, like IGN posted about this, like tons of like people like this clearly, even though it was like confirmed or whatever, or you don't want to take that. Like the Robert's Rebellion one was like a 4chan Reddit, like whatever. Like this was like, there's certainly slightly more credibility to this. And if George shut down that like Robert's Rebellion one, the argument was there's no way George would let this happen. One, George is already there working. And two, I'm pretty sure that legally HBO can do whatever they want because they own the rights to like the TV and movies. So like if they say, hey, George, even though you work for us and we're going to do it without your blessing, they can.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's another thing. We don't
Not
know
that
for
they
sure.
are, but
we also
they
don't know
can.
for sure that George is working on this. Like we would assume he would. But with this early news, I mean, it could be nothing. Also, again, this show could just not happen.
Well, we do know from
possible.
George, because George said George has confirmed on his Not a Blog. There's the Not a Blog, or excuse me, there's the Dunk and Egg series, and he has said House of the Dragon, and a few more I can't tell you about.
So you think he was in? He knew the whole time.
So a few more implies at least 2 to 3. So we know the 2 because those are like hardcore confirmed. He said that the 1 didn't end up working, which was the Dawn Age one.
Yeah.
So, but there are still a few more. So that means you scratch off the Dawn Age one, and there's at least 2 to 3 more, not including the Ice Dragon, which isn't technically a Song of Ice and Fire, but it's sort of like a sister, right? To a Song of Ice and Fire. So what are these other 2 to 3? This could easily be one of them. And we know there's 2 to 3 in the works. And here's some people confirming saying this is one of them.
Yeah. And I'm down for all of these things. And to kind of go back to the original point of like, is it taking away from him writing wins? I also saw people today. They were like, this is an exploration phase. I'm throwing my books in the trash. I'm done. And I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Go outside, touch grass. It's not that serious, guys. Like, I mean, you can see I love this series. It's not that big of a deal. And also, I don't know, the people who get up in arms like season 8 just ruined it. And it's like, I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm not
the only people who are like so overtly like against a potential like Jon Snow thing, at least like from the YouTube content creator side. So we were talking about this earlier today, Jimmy, are like the people, like the general people who like want to have read the books first so they can like act like they sound cool.
The gatekeeper.
Oh, like the gatekeeper. Like, yeah, this is what's going to happen. Not as good as it's like, Jesus.
Listen, there's some demands that have to be met, you know, and
clearly.
Yeah. I can separate TV show, and this is when all adaptations, like even the Lord of the Rings books, the movies, they're completely different in my head. Some people have a hard time with that. They really do. And I think you guys have done a pretty good job on your podcast of keeping things like you're doing the book read through now. You do the show news. Yeah. But the books are the books, right?
You got to keep them separate, man. Yeah. I mean, I actually, so I'm one of those guys, I'm a big time Star Wars guy. And like they decanonized all of my favorite stories, right? The All of Legends is like a whole separate storyline. Okay, fine. You keep it in a separate track, and then we got canon, we got legends, like whatever. I mean, and then you have TV shows, then you have the book series. I mean, come on, it's not that difficult. It's more of something that you enjoy. That's all, like with the Lord of the Rings stuff that's coming out. I hope, Jimmy, that you'll cover a lot of that, because I think it's gonna be it's a new show, and there's a new age group coming in that will watch that. That could be their doorway to a lot of Tolkien's work. And I'm like, why shut that door? Why say no? We got to go back and like whatever.
And what if it's really good?
I think it's gonna be, actually. I think people are gonna be shocked.
Let's just say The Lord of the Rings on Prime is the greatest television show that's ever happened.
Right.
So if you're one of the people who are like overtly hating on it, like, do you just have to eat crow and be like, I don't, are you gonna pretend like you aren't watching it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm
screenshotting everybody on the internet right now, so I'm taking notes over here.
Bro,
so
I have so many screenshots of people talking about Wins never coming out that if it
comes
out, it's gonna be petty parade on this channel. Like,
you better, absolutely, because I've been rooting for that for a long time. Yeah, like get off of people's back. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. Like this seems ridiculous. I know there are people working on that show, that Rings of Power show, right? That like putting their heart and soul into that show, and we don't know there's no source material for it. It could be freaking amazing.
That's what Bookworm said. She said Rings of Power, I think, has a good chance because it isn't directly adapting something.
There you go.
It's interesting.
I agree.
So okay, so I was over there grabbing this. Okay, so like here's the deal: is like you do have to keep the comics the book and the original source material and the TV, film, whatever adaptation entirely different. Okay, because like it's like people don't complain about it as much like with comic book stuff. I don't like, you know what I mean?
I see some pretty rabid comic books.
Right. I mean, there are, but they're like, but in the comics, but it's like, I guess I'm like, but what comic exactly? Like, okay, because here's a Batman origin story that came out in the 1980s. Batman originally came out in like the 1930s. So which origin story do I read? Do I read the one that came out in the 1930s that's no longer relevant? Or do I read the one in the 1980s that's now sort of the one that is used as like the basis? Or do I read the one that came out in 2013, 14 that coincides with the current comic arc that's considered like the main canon arc?
You
Or do I read like, right? Or do I read the alternative universe one that sort of ties in, and then like, you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. It's just, people are like, oh, but in the comics, but what comics? I mean, it's like, oh, it's that way, it's this way in the books, and it's like, this isn't a book, it's a movie, it's a TV show, it's totally different,
right?
Yeah, and I guess I don't have that big of a problem with it, you know.
Yeah, it's like Matt said though. So people who want to be that person, like that, the negative energy around stuff or whatever. It's like, guys, it's more content to consume. You can be critical of stuff or whatever, which is fair.
Yeah,
but
if
I
it
mean,
sucks, we'll tell you. Like, I'll tell you,
that's
it sucks.
fine.
Right?
That's fine. But I mean, they're trying to shoot stuff down before it even comes out, and why?
I know.
To make waves or something.
Well,
it's
that's kind
weird.
of how I feel. You know, it's just anyone that takes the absolute stance whenever we don't even know who's the director or anything. And it's
Right.
like,
but
right.
Matt, you said this, like, look at how much more attention this show has already gotten. Right. I mean, I think if you're HBO and you're kind of like gauging
it might
the
have
internet,
more impressions than Wheel of Time did.
That's what I'm saying. It's got a lot more. And so they're saying, yeah, this is gold, right? This is gold, and let's make it good because we make good TV shows. That's what we do. So
yeah,
I would never bet against HBO making a bad show. I mean, you know, have they had bad? Yeah, that does happen, but they also hit way more often than any of the other networks. And like, who else could have even done a Game of Thrones? Like, I think if you wanted your fantasy show adapted, or I'm sorry, your favorite fantasy series, like if I wanted Realm of the Elderlings adapted and it went to anyone but HBO, I'd be like, oh god, who knows?
Yeah.
Like Peacock, like no. Even Netflix, they're going to cancel it after season 2.
Right.
So
well,
it's tough.
Yeah, it is. It's yeah.
What do you guys think is the driving force? Because, and we can extend this beyond this, you know, MCU stuff, right? This is new Lord of the Rings show. It's like, it's almost the default take to hate it. What do you think that is?
Well, my opinion is people think they can profit off of some of these things. I don't know, people writing reviews or whatever. People are too critical, man. I don't understand what the whole like honestly, like out the gate, people start hating on shows before they even come out. Like the Lord of the Rings show. Like that was a great example of people who we haven't seen anything yet. I'm down for once it comes out to go crazy on it. If it's not great, whatever. But I don't know where that actually comes. That seems to be a more and more a thing just in our society.
I saw this on Reddit the other day. It was in one of the video game subreddits I belong to, but it's interesting because it does tie into the same with movies. Is they showed Metacritic averages over the years and the difference in correlation between critics and fans, and it's not even actually that fans have begun having lower and lower average Metacritic scores. Which I think they were just pulling from everything, not including games, because Metacritic does do movies as well, which is they combine all of everything, Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, everything, just like they do with video games. But they showed that critics are actually on average rating things higher and higher by year, and their average is going higher and higher by year, and fans are going lower and lower by year. So there could be some correspondence in there that maybe because critics are coming out and saying something is even better than it might be, that
it's a balance.
The fans are now saying, no, this actually sucks. And so because critics are seeming to be saying it's better and better when it's not, then people go in with sort of expectations that something is really good, and it's not. Like when we were doing Wheel of Time, like I use IGN a lot because one, I do a lot of video game stuff, but then I also typically actually tend to like be pretty in line with their reviewings. Like even some things they have at like a 9, which like everybody else has like a 7 or something. And I find that like I usually go check their review after I've watched it, and I was like, oh, that actually corresponds pretty much with where I actually was. But then like Wheel of Time was like the polar opposite for me. As I was like, how'd they give? I was like, that episode for me was like a 9. They gave it like a 4. And then it's like, not that they gave it a 4, but it's like a 6 or 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was just there is a disparity.
Jimmy, I have a problem with some like this. This for me is a tough topic because I go in, I'm a major fanboy, and I pretty well like a lot of stuff that you throw. I want to be entertained. You know, I sit there, I'm sort of like, give me something. You know, let me put this up on my TV, let me watch it, and sit back and just get carried away or whatever. And I don't know what it is that people like. I don't know. I guess I'm easily entertained or whatever. You know what I mean? I enjoy stuff. I enjoy video games, books. Most books people pitch to me, I'm like, let's go. It's got something, you know, and it's I don't know.
You know, for me, you know, it's interesting because I think people actually have a bigger problem with someone who enjoys everything rather than someone who hates everything. And I even see this in the book reviewing sphere. It's like, I'll be honest, if someone's like majorly critical all the time, like just all the time, there's a high probability that like, just as if someone who's only loving every single thing, like I find them both to be like, like I don't know if I really can feel like I can connect with their opinion. So it's weird. It's strange. I don't know. Like, but if for some reason the hating portion of it will get a lot more views, more engagement. People seem to lean towards that more. And to be clear, I think critiquing things brutally is totally acceptable and totally fine. I know you two don't always agree on your podcast, right? Because I think as you're a little more higher on Kenobi than Matt was at first, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and again, that's all good and well. I mean, Matt and I are kind of more like when we don't. It's like we're like here, right? You know, Matt's here, I'm here, whatever. Versus people who they go to the extremes that you're talking about, which is like the show hasn't even come out, right? And they're already like, this sucks. It's gonna be garbage. Yeah. You know, that Rings of Power show. Look what they're doing. Like they're already going nuts on it, and it's like we haven't even seen it. I mean, yeah. So that to me shows you that we people something. In our culture, society, or whatever, like you said, this whole like Matt was bringing up this battle. Well, critics are saying it's good. Well, watch me. I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna tear it up. I'm gonna tear it apart. Right? That's weird. I don't know that's just not me. If it truly is, Jimmy, let's go. Let's have it. Let's have the back and forth. Let's talk about season 8. Like let's go back and forth on those things. And that's fine and fair. And that's where you're right here. But where I just am out is people who are on those extremes. Like I
agree. Yeah.
Great comment here too by Connor M. With the rise of streaming, I think viewers are this must be fantastic. I'm on to the next thing. There isn't much staying power anymore because there is so much content. And with that, everyone also, you know, you begin to look right like 2012 and 2013. If that graph is sort of, or it's like the past, you know, it's like since like 2014. I'll see if I can find it. But Twitter. And now, then, like people making YouTube channels, just commenting. Like now with TikTok, even more. Like I post Star Wars stuff on there, and it's like, I said, hey, I like Star Wars Rebels more than I like Star Wars Clone Wars, which are these two cartoons. I'm like, and I even say in my thing, I'm like, I am no way say that Star Wars Clone Wars is bad. I think it's fantastic. I just prefer Rebels, and there's like comments every day because Clone Wars is the more sort of like accepted like. It's better thing, but I'm like, I just like this one more, and it's just literally like comments, and then other people start commenting, and so it just fuels the fandoms into being like, you're either with me or you're my enemy.
Wow. It is tribal out there. And another thing is that we look at Twitter, we look at the Reddit, we do all these things, we come on here, we talk. And I always say this on my channel, we're a niche of a niche of a niche. Like we don't actually matter all that much because it's all about the general population who are not even 1% of the world's population's on Twitter, like actively like that. We think it's reality. It's not. It certainly has its place, and you know there are things to consider from takes from there or any other social media site, right? But the big thing is mom and pa enjoying the show. It's the family sitting down every Saturday night or every Sunday night. That's all that matters. And I got news for you. You know, there's a lot of shows that we probably think are like complete junk that people watch every week.
They love
The Masked Singer.
They love.
The Masked Singer has 80 million seasons.
God.
And my thing is like I'm fine with that because like even on our show, like we like on our let's just take our start because our Game of Thrones one, I've said I really enjoyed actually the first 3 episodes of season 8. Like it wasn't necessarily the way I thought it was going to go, but I remember the tension. I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, everyone's going to die. Like everyone's going to die next week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then like that didn't necessarily happen in the final episode, but I still think that episode is like an absolute masterpiece. I mean, like, yeah, I know it's like really dark and whatever, but it's still like the music, the score, like the battle sequences, all that stuff. Like, I mean,
There's a
you
lot
know,
to like. There's a lot
right.
to like.
Go watch that, and then go watch anything that Marvel has done post Avengers Endgame, and tell me what has better CG and better like production quality, and it's not even close. Like not even close whatsoever.
I mean, I would agree with that.
I mean, I'm dead serious.
I'm not a
dude.
Marvel fan though, so
all people do right now, all like the biggest criticism of Marvel, pretty much post Avengers Endgame, or at least Disney Marvel, is like, man, the CGI is like downhill. It's just like everyone's like, it's bad, it's cheesy, it's like it just looks weird and stuff. But you know, I mean, like I watched Stranger Things, right?
yeah.
And it's like Stranger Things is freaking gorgeous and amazing, but Netflix paid $30 million like an episode on average, which is insane. Right now, like the average for like a Disney show is like 15 million an episode, like 10 to 15 million. House of the Dragon is reported at around 20 million an episode.
Yeah, guys, someone was mentioning the Kardashians in the chat there, and we go from like Matt just mentioned high quality, you know, like TV to trash TV.
Do
right?
you know I think they became billionaires like because of that.
Insane.
Well, to start, like, what's his name? Their dad was like a rich, you know, attorney. He was like one of OJ's like attorneys. Like he was like a rich guy, like to begin with. And then they're married like to the Jenner, you know. And
right.
Then,
It's got a whole thing.
An Olympian, and then you know, but stuff. But hey, man,
you think about trash. Right, you just think about trash TV compared to the stuff that we're talking about, like HBO quality, like stuff. And this is funny. There's that wide range of people who just love a good trash TV show. It's addictive. It's like I think. I don't know, like Gladys and I watched one where they all sat in a room and they had to listen to each other and never saw each other and had to get married at the end. And I was hooked. It's crazy.
I know. I'm addicted to Shark Tank, man. I mean, that's
you are addicted to Shark Tank.
Shark Tank is my like, you know, it's not necessarily, it's not really, it's not like, you know, it's not like a you know, I don't know, like what did I watch? What did we watch? Oh God, F-Boy Island was the one we watched last year.
Oh,
it was like, let's just do it. Like we knew it was gonna be like trash, like just for fun or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's like trash TV.
It's good to get that trash TV in there.
Yeah, you know.
You know, we're over here battling for what, 20 or 30 million dollars of an episode, and we get upset. But it is interesting. You know, I wonder with Wheel of Time season 2, because we obviously know the CGI wasn't up to snuff for a lot of people. At least that's what people tell me, because I actually don't know what that really means. But a lot of it had to do with COVID, and they say the CGI studios are still backed up from COVID.
I've heard
so
that,
you do wonder, like for something like Wheel of Time that had a kind of a lackluster season 1, at least that's kind of what I've gathered from public opinion. It does make you wonder, like, you know, there's a lot of room to improve. So like, what if season 2 comes out of the gate swinging?
Well, I don't know who's doing the CGI in Stranger Things, but it clearly was not affected by COVID. Or
fair enough.
Maybe they just took their time on it because there was a long time in between. But whatever they did, they knocked it out of the park, dude, because it is awesome. Like
I've heard it's maybe I need to give Stranger Things another shot.
Have you never seen season 1 or anything?
I tried season 1 like twice and I couldn't get into it.
It's a really interesting show, because it's sort of like like the show is amazing. I mean, like every but it's like every season. No, every season just has like a different kind of vibe to it. Like season 1 is like almost like your sort of like classic like scary movie, you know,
which I'm usually down for.
Yeah, like honestly, like you would love season 4 the most.
Yeah, season 4 would be right up your alley. Then
season four, like
said, it's
this is the redemption stream. You guys are trying to get me back into Wheel of Time. You guys trying to get me.
You know what we should do, because we were joking about this a while ago, Jimmy, in our group chat about like theories. What if we did it? What if we did an episode of fantasy book Shark Tank, right? And it was like people pitching us book, like, hey, you should read this series. You know, and it's like, all right, how many books is it? You know, like, are there like spin-off books?
Dude, I love this.
Are there this? You know, it's like, I don't know. That just sounds like too much reading. So for that reason, I'm out.
I mean, I think that would be a hell of a live stream idea. A fantasy book Shark Tank.
We have guests and they come in and they're
They
like,
pitch.
okay, here's what I'm thinking. And like, okay, tell me what do we got? You know, like
All right, we got an elf. Okay, we have an
Right.
elf.
Yeah. That's cool.
That could actually be a lot of fun. I kind of want to do that. We should definitely do that.
we should definitely do that. Especially because I've only read like 5 fantasy book series. So it's like, you know, you can pitch all of them to me.
I'm trying to
Like
push you.
if you try to pitch Malazan to me, it's like, okay, there's like 15 books and each book is a different main character, but that character might show back up like 7 books later. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out.
all right. Tell me what series I'm pitching. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Large cast of characters. All right. There's going to be a sprawling epic world. There will be history that goes in circles and circles and circles. And a cast that you will love. It's a cast where they cannot seem to communicate because, well, this person's male and this person's female. And whenever they try to come together to solve a problem, they go, gosh, I wish this other character's here. He knows how to talk to girls.
Right. Oh man.
And bosoms are described in vivid
Wow.
detail. What do you think? Yin?
Is there? Yeah.
Hold on. Tell me
more
a
about
bit-
the bosoms. What's going on? Is there?
Yeah.
Is there more?
Yeah.
Is there spanking involved? What was going?
Yeah,
on?
There is
more.
spanking.
Are there any sort of fun side quests that take place? Like I just feel like this series would be so much better if there was like clowns.
Well, honestly, I'm glad you mentioned it because we're thinking about maybe a chapter, maybe only 2. We might expand it a little bit, but I'm thinking like tight ropes. What about a circus? What about
I feel like I do feel like that could really
Is
help.
there a female character on the tightrope showing lots of leg?
Yes.
And is she a royal?
Yes,
Secretly.
and we also definitely want the characters to be mad at other characters for the clothes that they're wearing in different locations. Like I
Yes.
think that would really be something the reader could
Yeah,
really
all
get into.
All right, I'm
Getting
going to make
behind
you an
that.
offer. Okay.
All right.
All right, here's my offer. Now, these female characters, if these female characters can get captured 6 times every other chapter, then I'm in.
I'll do you one better. We'll do it every book for the first 4, and I'm going to do it in 14 books.
Down.
Wow.
I'm in. You got a deal.
Sold.
2% of all sales, and I'm not going to finish them. I'm going to my Brandon Sanders.
Are there desert gingers? What the heck?
Desert gingers.
Oh my god.
So
This is fun. I could do
we're
this
gonna
all
have to
day.
do this. It would definitely be. You bring in people and it's like series they've never read. You know, it's like, okay, here's what okay. Is there a movie adaptation? Right? Is there a movie coming down the line? Is
Or the
there,
rights sold.
Right.
Yeah. That's wild.
What if I told you I had a fantasy series that was a urban fantasy while also being a portal fantasy where you can switch worlds that also bends between a kind of a drama / horror film?
Okay. So what? It's urban, meaning it's like
Urban meaning it happens in our world at some points, but
Okay.
also can go to another fantasy world, and there's characters from different decades
Okay, that's interesting.
and robotic bears, and there's lightsabers.
Well, hold on a second. I'm not.
What about snitches?
Are they actually lightsabers? Because I'm
Yes.
out. That's
the straight up
Oh.
lightsabers?
okay. Well,
I don't know what series he's talking about.
I have no clue what series he's talking about. But
I mean, I
am-
just want to know if you'd buy it.
what
Oh, well, yeah, I'd buy it.
You got any more questions, or
I mean, it's what they portal between. They go back in time, or just different worlds, different like dimensions,
different
or
worlds? Different worlds. There might be different times. You might be able to go back in time,
Okay.
possibly.
Okay. Do we follow one character, or is there multiple characters with that?
We
or-
have an ensemble.
Is
Let's
there
Okay.
a right now, the big trending thing is there a multiverse?
Yes.
Okay. Then
There
I'm
is-
in.
There is
Yeah.
there is a connected multiverse to all of this. In fact,
What?
30
Okay.
something novels.
Is this just Stephen King?
It's Dark Tower,
I was about to
Mark
say, like,
Allen?
isn't Stephen, all of Stephen King stuff connected?
bro. Harry Potter stuff's it's canon.
Let's go.
What the heck?
Is he
It's all I'm
talking
gonna
about?
say.
Is he? In the comments, is he talking about Dark Tower?
Oh my god! I guess. Well, hey, yeah, sold a little bit. I mean,
It's a
I'm down.
western. There's a western piece to it. Thank you,
That-
Si.
Yeah.
Long
There is
days.
clowns.
There may be clowns. There may be
That's
clowns.
tied into it as well. What the heck?
I think all the Stephen King stuff is connected, right?
Most of his books are connected to Dark Tower.
Okay. Is there a pet cemetery?
I don't think there is a Pet Cemetery tie-in, but there is a Salem's Lot. You would need to read Salem's Lot before.
What about the
starting
one?
series.
Didn't he do the? I don't know. Is there a book and a movie? What's the one about like the cars that are killing people? It's like trucks and stuff, or running people over.
Isn't that a movie? Isn't there a car that tries to kill people? And
I almost said Mr. Mercedes, but that's not right. I can't remember the name. Somebody's got to help me out in chat here. God, you guys should really read Dark Tower.
Well,
so the only Stephen King I've done is I watched The Dead Zone, which was a cool TV show.
It was a good show.
Yeah, and then I've seen Pet Cemetery. I didn't see the new one. I've seen the original.
The
Maximum Overdrive.
The new Pet Cemetery they did in like 2018 or 2020 was terrible.
Sucks. Yeah.
It pissed me off. The old one, the cheesy one, phenomenal. You don't want to go down that road, right? It's so good.
Oh yeah, that guy's great.
Legend. Absolutely. Legend.
Isn't he also the judge in My Cousin Vinny? I think so.
There's a Dark Tower movie, right? 2017.
Yeah, we don't talk about it.
But
is it bad?
Right?
We don't talk about it. There was also, you want to hear something? There was a TV show, and I think HBO was looking. No, HBO wasn't. People wanted it to go to HBO. Amazon passed on the Dark Tower series, I think it was. Yeah. So there is a TV show pilot floating in the ether, and people are like, "Oh man, what if HBO grabbed it?" Because, dude, it would be the best TV show. Like, it would be.
All this stuff's gonna get bought. All this stuff is gonna get bought eventually because it's a content war out there, and all these people are competing against each other. So
as long as
eventually it runs out, and then you got to do something else.
Yeah, you know the thing about, we were kind of talking about the streaming services adapting books and stuff. Like, one of the things that is tough is that you finally get your book adapted, and then because there's so much content, if it doesn't hit immediately, they just drop it. Like 2 seasons. I'm shocked that I'm not shocked, but I'm happy that A Witcher is getting a 3rd season. Like, I was so worried that
season 1. I'll be the first to say it. Season 1 is pretty mid. Not gonna lie.
I think it had really high highs. Like, there's stuff I really liked about it, but there was definitely flaws with it. It was just, and I read the book. But like I've read the book. So I watched it. I was like, this doesn't make sense. I went back and read the book, and then I went back and watched it. And I was like, this still doesn't make sense. Season 2, though, which is a departure in a way from the books. It's way better though. Way better. Season 2 is like not GOAT tier, but it's top tier. Dude, the Witcher fandom, the book fandom, hates season 2.
I know they do,
which is so funny because it was a huge hit with general population.
Yeah,
but you like it, like you said, you read the books, you liked it,
right? You know, the funny thing though about the Witcher is the only series though in which I would say, in all honesty, the only people who should like. Because it's all usually like, oh, we're the book people. Like, we have like the most, you know, like it's almost like they have like the say in the matter.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I would say that the people who should have the most sort of say in The Witcher is the video game community, because they are the people that made it what it is.
You're not wrong.
And it is actually owned by a video game company. So oddly, I would say that the people who really have the most say in the matter is the Witcher video games.
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't read past Last Wish, but I was happy with season 2. I thought it was a better show than season 1, even though I still like season 1.
I think you'll like Sword of Destiny is more the same, but a little bit better. Although I think some of the villains, like some of the things he's hunting in book 1 are better. But once you hit Blood of Elves, you're going to be like, I'm going to start tearing through these.
Yeah, I've heard later it kind of pivots away from Geralt, which is interesting. Like it's almost like a bait and switch, and I've heard that's a lot of people's problems with some of the later stuff. But I've also seen, you know, people who are like kind of like mid on the series, like for books, they end up rating. I don't remember which book it was, but they always end up rating it very high. So there's definitely some good stuff in there, and I'm definitely going to continue Witcher for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Listen, I'll continue Witcher. You guys start Dark Tower. That's the agreement. I'll bring you on in 30 episodes.
Well, Jimmy's also working his way through Berserk, you know. But at some point, Jimmy, not to shift gears here, but we're gonna
do Dragon Ball, boys.
Planning. I am also, by the way, I saw some people when I showed my Batman comics. at some point, I do want to. I do think there are a handful of, and I don't really know much outside of a lot of like DC, but I do think there are a handful of Batman graphic novels that Jimmy would like absolutely love.
Out of everything superhero, Batman would be the one thing I would try.
Yeah, there's a handful, like a lot. Some of it I don't know that you'd be into, but there's a handful where I'm like, I think you would like eat it up.
I'm supposed to do those. Ez has been trying to get me to read Star Wars novels by Timothy Zahn for years.
Wow.
Ooh, the Thrawn
People love
trilogy.
Thrawn. Yeah,
They're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're good. It's good Star Wars. Yeah, because the rest of it's really just kind of like, I don't know. They make up characters.
Pick your story, and like there's to be
Yeah.
some that you like, some that you don't. I don't really, honest to God, I can't really think of that many Star Wars things that I actually think you might be into.
I mean,
Star Wars novels.
Yeah, I will say the Star Wars fandom is a little toxic at times.
It is.
As someone who came to it later.
If I were to recommend one to you, and what all Star Wars have you seen?
I've seen all the movies, and I've seen Mandalorian. I like the Mandalorian. I thought Mandalorian was the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So actually, one I would recommend is the audiobook, specifically the audiobook. That's how you do it, right? You do audiobooks, or you?
I do both. I do physical and audio. Yeah.
So the one I really tell everyone to go to is Dooku Lost.
That's a ridiculous name.
I know. So it's about Count Dooku, but it's the audiobook is a full cast.
So I love those.
So it feels almost more like a play. It's really short. It's like 5 hours, but it's just like, because it's a full cast, it just flows so well. And I was just like, I blitzed through it in like 2 days. I was like, wow, this is great.
Yeah, I like those full cast like dramatizations, I guess you would say, of audiobooks, because Dune has that, and I thought it was really good. They get rid of the dialogue tags too. I mean, obviously it's not a 1-for-1 for the book, but sometimes they work. Sometimes they're a lot of fun.
Yeah. Batman novels, I think you'd have to do year 1 first, just because it's like sort of the Batman origin, or like it's the newer sort of good Batman origin, and then you can kind of go into a lot of different directions. But I have a handful. I think you would really like the Dark Knight Returns. What did you think of, like, do you like 300, Sin City?
Oh yeah, I really like 300. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Frank Miller is the guy who did that.
Yeah, he's talented.
And then he did the Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, I think I could probably get into that, especially the stuff that he did. I see people saying that I would like Watchmen. I actually believe I would. I actually know all of what happens in Watchmen because I watched it to lead up to the HBO show, which, if you've never watched Watchmen on HBO, it is the best miniseries I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
I like the movie.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of want to watch the movie because the show was so good. Isn't the movie really long? Like, isn't it like insanely long?
But that's because I'm a Zack Snyder diehard. So anything that Zack Snyder touches, I'm super.
You're a big fan of.
Well, he did the movie 300. That's by far his biggest hit. Then he did Batman vs Superman, and he did Justice League, his version of Justice League, and he did Man of Steel.
Interesting. Someone said Planet 628 said there's supposed to be a great Batman audiobook exclusive to Spotify right now.
Yeah, and they've started doing like audio dramas, which you can listen to on HBO Max.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Would you say there's a clutch of Batman graphic novels?
He's referring to how I obsessed over the word clutch in George's update, which I appreciate Connor paying attention, because that's a
yes. We did. Jimmy and I both were like, "Hey, man, a clutch. You got to pay attention to it."
We did.
Yeah. Yeah, there are definitely. The one I think you would like the most, I think you would really like Court of Owls, which is sort of a newer. I guess like it was like 2011, 2012. I think you would super like that one.
Yeah, I would. V for Vendetta. I love V for Vendetta. Such a good movie. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I've also heard that look at this, Jimmy. I think you'd like The Hobbit. Well, I reviewed The Hobbit, and I do think it still slaps. Yeah, folks, if you haven't checked out my Hobbit review, I posted it this week, and I did some cool edits in there and used some of the Alan Lee illustrated,
good, man,
illustrations. Yeah, those illustrations are phenomenal. It was so much fun to put that video together. So go check that out if you haven't seen me kind of just praise The Hobbit for 15 minutes. It's one of my favorite videos I've made, I think. Someone's asked me what I think of Saga, whatever. I like it. I read volume 1 and I have volume 2. I think these two would really like Saga. It's actually heavily inspired from Star Wars, and it just continued. Yes, I think you guys would really like it. And they're short. I mean, it's a comic. They're short.
Yeah. I'm down.
Yes, The Hobbit does suck diesel. That is confirmed.
Pretty good.
And Sandman. We were talking about the
It's getting an adaptation.
It's getting an adaptation, and there is an audiobook that is acted out, like you just said.
Okay.
That's
And
cool.
I've heard they are phenomenal on audio. In fact, I've actually held off from actually reading them because I think it was Sarah Reed's. Maybe it was her. She told me that the audio was fantastic. But that adaptation has Brienne of Tarth.
So
Yeah.
one of my favorite anime ever, which obviously is based off of manga. It was just announced like sort of today or here in the past few days that it's getting a new series. I don't know if it's a continuation or sort of a redo, but Trigun is getting a.
I've never heard of this. Let me look this up.
Oh, dude, you get it. Trigun is so good. So it was like in the
It's Western.
90s.
Whoa.
Yeah. In the 90s, there was like 3 sort of like space Western animes that like at least certainly hit the United States really big, which was Trigun, Outlaw Star, and Cowboy Bebop. And so like they all kind of came right around the same time. I love all 3. And I actually think like if you like one, you're gonna like all 3, but they're just sort of like they're like different aspects of that sort of space Western. Now, Cowboy Bebop is by far the best of those. And I actually here's something I really like the Netflix adaptation of it.
Yeah, that was
a
one
lot
that,
of people didn't, but I liked it.
That was one that I felt like was really negative going into. People were like, "This is stupid," but then when it came out, I felt like it was mostly positive. It's still like a loud, negative voice, but it got canceled. It's like, damn,
it did.
Sucks.
It did, yeah. Well, it's because Netflix spends so much money on stuff that if it doesn't hit, they just can't. Well, now they're like in deep water and that with their
they in trouble
because they spent so much money on projects that didn't do very well for them.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, the Sandman is the Sandman on Netflix. I think it is, isn't it?
The Sandman thing that's coming. I think
yes.
I think it's HBO Max.
Is it really? Charles Dance is in it, so I'm like legit in, and plus Brienne of Tarth. So, Sam.
Yeah, it's DC. It's DC Entertainment.
Oh shit, that's on HBO. Oh, it's gonna be good. See, that's my natural reaction to an HBO show. I just go, oh, it's probably gonna be good.
Because it probably is.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. DC on Sandman. Yeah. Oh, is it coming to Netflix? Well.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's Netflix. I thought it was Netflix.
But ultimately, see, that's the thing. Warner Brothers, hey, it's their thing. But then you drop stuff on whatever. It's all about money.
Yeah, we learn as
you gotta follow the money. That's how you know what adaptations are coming and where they're going and who's doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I also Preacher was one that was pretty good, and they said needed to be on cable. Yeah, August 5th. I'm definitely gonna watch The Sandman. Definitely, and if I like the show, I'll probably get into the graphic novels. Or the comic or whichever. It's gonna.
I actually read I read a Sandman volume a couple years ago. It was okay.
Yeah, I've heard the visuals.
It's not
crazy.
It's not my cup of tea because if I'm reading like DC comics, it's gonna be Batman. But yeah.
I mean, is he like a guy made of sand, or is he like a guy who's in your dream? What's this guy?
Right.
Sand?
No, he's not the Sandman that's in Marvel. That's a different Sandman.
Fun fact: Sandman by Neil Gaiman is a massive IP now. George turned it down for wild cards.
Ooh.
Yeah, and George turned him down and said, I don't want it. He went with somebody else. And Gaiman thanks George to this day for it. He's like, thank God you turned me down. They're actually really good friends. So it's kind of a cool story. Always have a story about Gurm. Always.
But yeah, I mean, look at this cast, man. You got Gwendolyn Christie in here. Charles
it's
Dance.
A major production, dude. That is going to be the show that they're going to want to take the spot of Stranger Things, in my opinion. Like Stranger Things, remember Westworld came out after Game of, like they always have one in the chamber trying to continue that big epic, and I think that Sandman is probably their biggest effort.
Yeah,
because that's a big money production, no doubt. And Gaiman was heavily involved too.
He's a guy who goes around throwing a pocket of sand at people. And
the King of the
Hill. Did you know King of the Hill is coming back?
Yeah, man. And you know what? I'm here for it.
I am too.
I love King of the Hill,
man. I'm down for more King of the Hill.
Well, gentlemen, I gave my Yeah, I gave myself a hard stop time of 2 hours because I actually have company tonight. So I gotta go do the family thing. I'm excited that they're here and I want to go spend some time with them. But I didn't want to reschedule Chat with Nuts because moving, I had missed some videos and I wanted to get back. And I wanted to talk to all you guys in chat. It was great seeing you guys here. Matt and Hez, thanks, boys.
Thanks, man.
Hey, man. Thank you.
It's fun being on here. It's good.
Yeah,
good
Jimmy was just on Bend the Knee like a week or two ago, so you can go check that video out. We have that. So
yeah, and subscribe to all their channels. I have them linked down below in the description. I have them tagged there. You can go check it out. Hyperspace Hangout for Star Wars. You have Heroes of the Horn for Wheel of Time. Bend the Knee for Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire content. We have Matt has a wonderful video game channel here on YouTube, and it's also a podcast, which the channel is called Super Games Bros, but the podcast is called Box Trick. And then Ezra has a Lord of the Rings or a Tolkien podcast that's pretty large, Up Talking Tolkien, which is pretty dope with his buddy Lane. And I believe, Ez, you just started a new project too with your wife, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we have a little just Show Cottage Radio, kind of a little Harry Potter thing, a little Wizarding World thing as well. Yeah.
And folks, I know we always talk books and stuff. This one was a little bit more a Song of Ice and Fire centric, but when you have the two goats, you gotta. And we had big news today, so don't worry. I'll be talking about all of the obscure books that we love on the next episode. But I wanted to take some time and talk to my two buds here and just kind of nerd out a little bit, fanboy a little bit. So I'm just happy everyone was here. Matt, where can people find you on the internet?
Anywhere on the internet at Super Games Bros. I will say TikTok is probably like if you want to reach me like immediately, and I do cover pretty heavily over there, like DC Comics and Star Wars and a lot of the other stuff there too. But I've interacted with a lot of people. A lot of people send me videos with like, hey, can you cover this? And I will like do a full breakdown of here's the order you should read.
Yeah, you're making some pretty big traction over there on the TikTok with the Zoomers.
Yeah, well, Ez is about to pass me on TikTok. So
Ez, you're on TikTok, huh?
So just a little Star Wars. Yeah, the Matt got me fired up on this short content, and I'm like, I freaking love it, man. Just it is really because like Star Wars is really for kids, and like they love it, man. That's their platform. They eat it up. So
love
it's
it.
Hyperspace Hangout, which is also our Star Wars podcast. And then I also just my you can find me at Womprat_2M. I mean, clearly it's a Star Wars handle. I love my Star Wars, and I got my link tree in there too. So you can find all of our projects.
Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate you two coming on, and I look forward to doing some more collabs. And we got a lot to be excited about.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. Hey, we'll see episode 61.
That's right. Episode 61. The boys will be back. Chat, if you don't mind, go ahead and throw a like on this video. Helps people find it after the fact. I appreciate you all so much, and just love having these bi-weekly hangouts. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another guest for Chatting with Nuts, and I'll probably also have a Dudes Talking Manga out on Sunday. But until I see you next time, be good, be safe. Remember to always keep turning the page.